All right, so we're back with Shoot Me Straight with Eddie and Dave, and today we have some amazing guests, Jesse and Jordon Bowen, right? Okay?
You're right.
Sorry.
That's right.
So you guys are local here to the Destin area. We've met a couple times. We've met
quite a few times, and then you guys have met a couple.
Yeah, that's right. And I know Andrea, my wife.
I know your wife.
But I reached out to you guys. I wanted you guys to come on because I think what you two are doing, I follow you on Instagram. I see the videos that you post, and I think they're remarkable and inspiring to others, especially what you do with your children, with the workout and the mindset. And I mean, I watch them go to, you're always posting the jiu-jitsu tournaments or the wrestling tournament. I mean, your kids are savages, dude.
Appreciate it.
And I'm like, it's admirable to both of you to see you guys raise them in this way, especially in today's society. And that's like one of the main reasons I wanted to have you guys on, and obviously because you guys are awesome people.
We appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
We're honored to be here for sure.
Yeah, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Can y'all give me some background? Like, I literally just had
just met
He's
Jordan.
Yeah.
10:30 a.m.
It's
today.
androgynous names. Is the guy Jordan or is the girl Jordan?
It happens all the time. I go by Jordan all the time.
I get called Jesse at least 5 times a week, and I just answer as though I am. And like 10 minutes later, like, oh my gosh, I thought.
We don't
Like, no
Don't worry
worries.
about it.
J and J.
That's literally what we go by. It's Jay. We call each other Jay.
Jay, and then
Or
we call
JB.
her JB, and then people call me JB, and so it goes back and forth. So, who are you? What's your background?
Yeah. So my name's Jesse Bowen. I started an Instagram page with my daughter about, let's say, 2018. I did it just because we own gyms. So we own 4 local gyms, and we're in the gym all the time. And so my daughter and my son come with us all the time to the gym when we were training. And so she just started working out with me, and I just started posting videos of her squatting next to me, her, doing pull-ups next to me, hanging on the bar. And I really wanted to start the page to inspire other women that, to be a model to your kids. So if you model your kids' fitness and health and habits, then it will flow into their lives, and it can be fun. So fitness can be fun. And I know that sometimes a lot of us adults, we think fitness is draining. It's not fun. It's a chore. And I really want to change that for kids, that fitness should be fun. It should be something you look forward to, not something that you're like, oh, I got to go work out. So we started this page in 2018, and it's just grown from there.
Awesome.
And we just love working out as a family. We love doing jiu-jitsu. We love wrestling, gymnastics, all that fun stuff. So,
How do you keep your kids? So
yeah.
like, you obviously model the fitness and working out, and then I see your kids are doing it with you. How do you keep your kids like invested or them wanting to go work out? Because I have this issue where I work out all the time. I have my garage gym, and my oldest son, I just, this January, I make him get up at 3 times a week at 4:45 because he's getting ready to go to the Marine Corps. But my other 2, it's like pulling teeth at times to like, dude, go. Like, I'll write them a workout, and they're like, ugh. Like, they look at it as a chore.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do you get them?
We beat them.
That's the route I'm taking. I don't get why it's not working.
See, I get it. You're like Jordan. That's the approach Jordan would take.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm kind of a free spirit in general, and fitness, I never wanted fitness to feel like an obligation. So for me, it's all about like setting the vibe of the workout. Music, like, what's the music we're going to play today? How are we going to have fun in the workout? Like, I want the workout to be fun. I cannot stand doing just a boring workout. That's not fun for me. So for our kids, I first wanted to say, we're not going to make it long. So if you make a workout long, kids are over it in like freaking 10 minutes. So when we first started with fitness with our kids, we made it short, and we made it a game. So I know your kid is older. He's my son's age. For him, I would, a lot of times with our kids, when they're older, we have them coach us. So we'll say, hey, we're going to do a workout today. What do you want to do? Like, you want to do upper body? You want to do lower body? You talk with him through it. You write the workout together. So then he has, a part in the workout. And then also you do it alongside of him. I know at first it's boring when you're so far ahead of your kid, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to work out after this because this isn't a workout for me. That's what we did a lot. So we would work out with them. It wasn't the best workout for us, but we would have them coach us too. So we'd say, okay, here's the set we're doing. How do I do this? How do I do a clean or a deadlift? Like, teach me real quick. So we kind of have them a part of that workout and then keep it short. When they leave the workout, they should feel like they want to do more. So we never made it too long, so they're like, I'm over this. Like, I want to leave. We would just right to the end of, like, they're getting pumped up. They feel hyped about what they did. And then we stop it. All right, we're done. We're done for the day.
So you leave them on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You keep it short.
Yep.
And then you have them like teach you in it so that they feel like they're forces them to get involved.
And good music.
And good music.
Good music. Music
That's
is
a good formula.
There's a blend too, right? So like Jess is always the fun piece.
I'm the fun one, yeah.
Like generally as a human, I'm the discipline, responsibility, and unfun person, right? So like kind of your exact question is like starting with why is it important for kids, right? And so what Jess does a really great job of is she always makes it fun. Does that mean like there's going to be days where your kid doesn't want to work out, right? Absolutely. And so like that's the other parents that hear that stuff and you're like, you know, do you make them work out? It's like, man, that's a great question. Do you make your kids brush their teeth, right? So like when you are teaching your kids to brush their teeth, you don't just go, get in there and brush your teeth. Just do it, right? You're like, all right, so what does it look like? You give some whats, you give some whys, and then you do a cooperative vision, right? So like you got a little kid, they're like, I don't want to brush my teeth. Like, I get that. I sometimes don't feel like it either. What do you think is going to happen if you go your whole life and don't brush your teeth, right? And it's like, here, come here, I got Google. Let me show you something. Right?
Yeah.
You know?
He's done
Meth,
that.
rut.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Kids
so,
are like-
exactly. So we go, look, I can understand how, like, the part of us that doesn't feel like doing something, but every decision and action has implications. So if you decide not to brush your teeth, long term, like, you're going to have a tore up mouth. And here's the deal. It's the one area of life that's the most difficult to overcome, right? You have just an amazing face and super busted teeth, and it's pretty difficult to hold a conversation.
You got summer teeth.
That's right. That's right. Some of that's it.
That's right.
Them southern teeth.
Yeah.
Right? And so with them, we ask them like, hey, what are you hoping for in jiu-jitsu? Or what are you hoping for on this next event? Or, you know, what do you want when you're 18 and looking back? What outcomes do you want, right? And so we help to cooperatively identify some of that kind of early, and then we speak to those whys with whats. And if they're real little, like Brody little, you know, your son is a little older for this, as is ours, but if they're real little, man, everything is so caught, it just becomes a way of life, right? So
Modeling is the biggest thing when they're
if
younger.
your child is a little older, then I think probably you have to chat to
and
them.
I think when they're older, consistency is the hardest.
Yeah.
So like, I'm sure your son likes to work out, but it's the consistent process of like being on a schedule of a workout, which is harder for older kids. And that's where his mindset stuff comes into play. Because with our son, we were just telling him like, to be the best, you have to do the boring stuff. And the boring stuff is in the gym every day.
Yeah, that's it. And when he was real little, I remember he asked me, he was like, we got done watching a movie, and he was like, Dad, are there real life superheroes? And I was like, what a complex question, right?
Yeah.
So, simple question, complex answer. I say, if you mean, are there people that have like supernatural abilities that are unobtainable? Generally, no. The answer to that's going to be no. Are there character and opportunities to do things that others won't? Yes. And so for sure there are superheroes for that. However, when you find yourself in these dark times, the more discipline you've built and the stronger you've built your mind and your body, the easier it'll be to make that hard decision and be a superhero in those moments, right? And so how is it that you do that? Well, here's the deal. You literally in front of you have the capacity to be a faster, stronger, more explosive, more endurant, more resilient person, but all you have to do is put in the work, right?
Well, yeah, and that comes with discipline.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Did he absorb all that?
Yeah, he did actually. He's super. You know, like everybody's like impressed with their kids. You know what I mean? Like that's a normal thing for me. Like I'm a fan of his mindset, his integrity, and like his kind of thought process is sure partly nurtured, but so much just natural who he is. Like in 14 years, he's lied to me one time, right? Wow. And that's not just a metric of our parenting. So like if somebody hears like, man, my kid freaking fibs to me all the time, right?
Our daughter.
We have Brody.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, you know, where'd that go? It's like, it's not. It's not. Okay, you're right. And she'll own up and be honest. But
but nurture does play a part, right?
Absolutely.
Like 100%. Modeling, like you said.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How old are y'all's kids?
Our daughter's 10 and our son's 14.
Okay, so two kids, 10
kids,
and 14, boy, girl.
Yep.
And, you know, as far as like worried about, imagine if you, again, the same analogy, you told your kids to brush their teeth and they saw you never brushed your teeth, right? You're like going, listen, this is really important. this is going to impact your life.
Yeah, but you
never do it.
It's like do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely.
Type leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so if you want your kids to like be at their highest level, help model to them that you're willing to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
regularly.
And something I just thought of, I think that plays a part, especially with our son and maybe your son too. They have somebody to look up to that's probably like overwhelming at times. Like you're overwhelming.
That's my biggest fear
Absolutely.
as well is I'm sorry to cut you off too.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes it's too much for them and they're like, I'm not going to be like you.
Yeah. Will I be
like
as good as my dad?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's, obviously we don't think that way.
Right.
I'm like, dude, I just want you to get better and start, having some discipline and work out. But yeah, I do feel like sometimes that there's that stress on them. Like, oh, well, especially for your prior career, which we can get into, and then mine, like, well, you were this, and how am I going to achieve that?
Right. Tell him how you're kind of working through that, because I see that. I know you don't mean that at all, but I'm sure Slate's like, well, gosh, look what my dad did, or your son's like, look what my dad did,
Yeah. Well, go ahead and let's get into like sort of what you did a little bit too.
Sure. So military wasn't super long or extensive, but it was pretty fruitful. I was a pararescueman, right?
Yep.
So I did that for like 6 and some change. I did a 6-year enlistment and then extended for another deployment to go to Afghanistan. I don't have anywhere near the deployments that other guys have, but I was fortunate enough in just 2 deployments to be in some decent situations to get some decent experience.
Is that PJ?
That's correct. That's PJ. Yeah,
I'm the civilian.
Yeah, that's
by
right.
far.
So PJ just stands generally accepted pararescue jumper. There's a longer answer to why they call it PJ, but I won't bore everybody with it.
That so others may live.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. The mottos that so that others may live. And so for me, I was fortunate. I remember what it was like being a young man post 9/11. Right. So it's like the war had already started. We all remember what 9/12 was like. And so for me, I was like, I want to make an impact for my country, right? Yeah. I never planned on being 20 years from the start. I just wanted to serve my country, and I figured no better way to do it than to, put one's life on the line in the pursuit of saving others. And so, like, Iraq was pretty awesome. We were covering down on the task force there. Not as maybe say fruitful as Afghanistan was, but it was really neat, man. We did a lot of vehicle interdictions. We were working with.
What years were you there?
I was in Iraq in 2007.
Okay.
I was in Afghanistan in 2009.
Okay. Yeah.
That's that long pipeline, right? So I entered in 2003, but the PJ pipeline's 2.5 years. So I didn't get to my first unit until 2006.
As it should be, because you guys have like a wealth of knowledge across a lot of areas.
And I feel very fortunate just from what I do see from what tends to be a pretty big impact with guys is like, if the first time you've seen that crimson red fluid is in combat, like, sure, you've done moulage and you've worked on stuff. Yeah, but it's a whole nother story when it's your buddy and looks like that, right? So I felt fortunate that by the time I deployed, I mean, I had held human hearts and clamped off descending aortas, like in different ORs and all kinds of different kind of wild stuff. So for me, I was able to really treat everything as mechanically as possible for the situation, compartmentalize it.
What made you go the PJ route?
Yeah, man, so that's a wild story, I guess. So way back, I did jiu-jitsu as well when I was real young, right? And so I did well enough to win a national championship, but I was 17 fighting in like the 18 to 35-year-old category. This was way back. It's not the way jiu-jitsu is now. I was,
back in the days of the kumite.
Yeah, sorry, kumite. So it was very early in the sport, and it was actually American jiu-jitsu, which is like a blend of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and judo, right? So there was like you wore kind of like these really soft little gloves, not MMA gloves at all, and it was kind of silly because like you could punch each other and kick each other like from the neck down, right? So like you come over and like you could hit somebody in the stomach and then grab a hold and throw them or something. You still wore a gi. So I did that and was fortunate enough, I guess. I trained like, I probably barely graduated my last year, just trained so much, right? And so I did that. I won, and then I was training to go represent this U.S. team at the time. The organization, the sanction organization, was called the USJJF, right? So United States Jiu-Jitsu Federation. You can look it up because I think they still have something now, but in hindsight, it's like a little cheesy compared to like the capacity that like a national champion or world champion has in the current jiu-jitsu scene. So I had done some of it, but I was hoping to like continue to do that. And like a month out from going to Uruguay, which is where like the championship was, I thought I wanted to be an MMA fighter as a kid. They like called me and said, I was training. They called the dojo I was at and said, hey, this kid somehow like slid in under the radar to be able to compete in this division. Our insurance won't cover him in a world capacity like this. Like he can't compete.
Because you were 17.
Because I was 17, right? Yeah. So this was in September of 2002, and I turned 18 in February of 2003. Okay. Right? And so I was like, I was just a kid. And so they were like, you can't do it. And that put like a pretty good like damper on my motivation to train, right? And so I was like, I guess I better figure out something else, right? Because, you know, one practice miss led to another, and my parents were working so, like, tremendously hard to establish their business that it was like they were fantastic parents, but it's like just that little kind of moment there that they could have kept me on the rails in that direction. It's like, because I wasn't going to get in trouble. I just, you know, wasn't really going to practice anymore. Maybe once or twice a week.
Sort of lost the purpose.
Lost the purpose. Yeah. That's it. That's
was this UFC 1? Had that happened yet?
Man, it would have happened for sure because that was like in the 90s. But it was like right in the Tito Ortiz time frame. And like, you know, he was like just murking everybody. And so it was neat to see at the time. And so once I kind of lost that purpose, I was like, you know, okay, well, maybe I'll go to college, right? And so I remember I had good grades. I was good at physics. I was good at, you know, math and all you know, applied sciences and stuff. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go up and do this tour at Georgia Tech. So I went up to Tech, and I remember just walking around the campus, and I was like, I'm not this responsible. I was like, this is like a guaranteed poor decision. I was like just responsible enough to know this is not for me. So I like came back and I was like, all right, I guess I'll join the military. My dad had been kind of pushing me in that direction. Like, hey, you might consider this. But as a young man, I was like, I don't know. And so after I did the little tour, I came back and I went to go to the Army recruiter, right? Because it's like, I'm going to join the military. You know, let's go do the what's going to get me in the most effective interaction now, right?
Yeah. Put me in the right spot.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I went to the Army recruiter, and they gave me the brochure. Man, it looked good. They showed me all how good the dorms were, the jobs, and I was like, cool. I didn't know anything about Rangers. I didn't know anything about SF. I didn't know anything about this because my dad was military, but he got out when I was like 3 years old, right? So it'd been a whole lifetime, and even though we lived here locally, I just didn't know a ton of people that were military. Like my dad was in services, like a services industry, worked on HVAC, right? He owned an HVAC company. And so I came home. I was like, Dad, I think I'm going to join the Army. And he was like, all right, son, that's good. Yeah. And he didn't say anything. He played it cool. They got a hold of my uncle, who was Air Force intelligence officer at the time. And he calls me, right? And he was like, hey, man, your dad told me you were looking at going into the Army. I was like, yeah, you know, and I'm young and fired up now. I'm excited because this is like November. I graduate the following May. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And the job that they had given me, I knew nothing. And God's so kind to me, was like cryptolinguist, right? Because of my ASVAB scores.
Gosh.
Yeah, so I had like these good ASVAB scores, and they're like, this is the job for you. And I was like, sounds good, right?
Yeah.
You know, meanwhile, somebody's getting a solid quota checked.
I have a similar story. Yeah.
And so my uncle calls me. He's like, hey, man, I don't know if you've ever heard about this job, pararescue or not, but I was never tough enough to probably do it. And I was like, you know, what was that?
What?
It sounds like a little bit of a challenge.
Challenge
accepted. And I had some respect for this uncle for sure. And so I went down to the Air Force recruiter. My dad went with me, and they were like, what are you interested in? I was like, I'm interested in pararescue. And they're like, all right, cool. So they come in the back, they take out the VHS tape, right? And they put it in the VCR, right? And it's like the recruiting tape, and they hit it. And it's just like a 3-minute slizzler reel of people just getting destroyed, right? Like that selection, right? Just, you know, the log, you know, all the same stuff from buds and people passing out, shallow water blackouts and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that looks pretty cool. And combat control and pararescue were going through the same selection whenever I watched the video. So there was like the question, should I do combat control? Should I do pararescue? And I did a little bit of deep dive, and for me, I just always, in my heart, have felt like a shepherd and a servant of men. So like that kind of, listen, I'm gonna go to war, and you know, if I'm putting rounds in people's faces, that's okay with me, especially if it's in the pursuit of saving somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, man, like long story short, the rest was history. I signed up for that job, and, my dad was a little nervous. They tried to get me to go air traffic control first, and the recruiter's like, what do you want to do? Right? What do you want to do? And I was like 18, and it was a female that was in good shape at the time. So like, she's probably got my best interest, So I signed up for pararescue, and yeah, man, the rest is kind of history. Yeah.
Did you struggle at all through the pipeline?
Dude, I struggled every single day. Right? Yeah. So mentally, I made a decision. Like before I ever went, I was like, dude, I will die before I leave this place. Like it's not happening. If I don't make it, it's going to be because I physically cannot make it. Like, I am not leaving this motherfucker, dude. And so I was, when they, you do your first, like, kind of run selection, I was, like, decent, halfway in the pack, right? So when there's 121 guys, I'm halfway in the pack. But we graduated with 18. So by the time we got to 18, I was the slowest runner by like a solid margin.
Didn't you say you would take like tons of Advil every day because you had such terrible? I
took so much Motrin for the shin splints. Like,
that was the remedy for anything back then.
Absolutely, yeah. We didn't know anything about recovery and building your tendons up or anything.
Just eat those 800 milligrams all day.
Dude, by the end of dive school, I was taking 2,400 milligrams at like.
Just
per interval.
Destroying your body.
I would be bleeding. Like, I would, like, literally go to the bathroom and be bleeding. Like, my intestines were so beat up from it. But it was, like, the same thing. It was, like, the pain level was so high from the stress fractures I had that it was just, like, what are you going to do? And I knew what I was going to do. I was going to fucking get it done. So, yeah.
So you struggled physically, but you were number one in a lot of classes.
Yeah, I did. I did do well, definitely in that piece. Like, I didn't have a huge problem with the water. I didn't have a huge problem with discomfort. I mean, at Indoc, I had 7 shallow water blackouts, right? Because, like, I ended up having one where I was on the pool a little long, and I caused some damage to my alveoli. And so then after that, my capacity got less and less, but I'm not going anywhere. So I remember I'd like swim a 50. I get back like 45. I wake up on the deck, right? Like, back in, and and I had this team leader or team sergeant that was in charge of us, this guy named Dave Keaton. He's awesome. Anybody that knows him out there, he's like, you want to try it again, right? And he's like one of the instructors. I'm Roger Sergeant, right? Get back in, go out again. Like after one or two, they pull me out and be good at that point. But I was able to accomplish all of the tasks. I swam my 4,000 meter fin. Like, I've never been in like a cardio machine. I filled it by. You had to do it in under 80 minutes, right? So in the first one, I was 80 minutes and 8 seconds. Oh. And then they're like, all right, we're going to let you swim it again. You could double red, but not generally past that. The second one I swam it, 80 minutes, 4 seconds. 4 seconds faster, right? And they were like,
nope.
Listen, no, I got lucky, man. They were like, we're going to recycle you. Like, nobody's ever done this and missed it by a total of, this many minutes and 12 seconds. So combined, we're going to give you one more go. If you don't pass this, that's it, man. We got to roll you. And I was doing so well at everything else, academically, calisthenics. My dad used to, for discipline, just make me do like 200 push-ups and sit-ups all the time growing up. So, and I had a smart mouth, so that happened a lot. We got a lot of those in, but never any running and like high endurance. So on the third one, this was like probably the first time I took way too much Motrin, so I took a whole bunch, and I was fortunate. My ankle was really messed up going into the ones before, but I ended up swimming in like 73 minutes.
Dang.
And so, big improvement.
Don't take this as an idea to take a lot of Motrin, though. This is like an ad for Motrin.
The PSA, kids. Eat your Motrin.
That's it.
Right? Yeah. Like,
it's always, that's what we kind of even teach our kids is like, what can you control kind of on the front end? And it's like you're doing all the things that you should. To what extent, eventually, you get down your choices, and then really the question is, like, what outcome are you hoping for, right? So for me, I'd rather die than leave. And so
I feel like that's the mentality largely across the board. In any special operations selection you go to, and I get asked, I'm sure you do all the time, like, these young kids are like, oh, I want to, go to Buds, or I want to go be a PJ, or I want to go, like, what, they ask for advice, like, what do you think I should do? And I don't obviously there's, train for it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, you have to be obsessed to a point where you're willing to die before you don't make it. And I'm like, and it's hard to tell kids that, or even adults, when you're talking to adults, like, I would have died if I couldn't have.
And not even a question.
Got to try it, right? Yeah. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, and I would have. But I think that mindset spreads across, at least for my entire career, where it's like, I am willing to give up everything for this job. Yeah. Whether it's, and sometimes it's, a lot of times it's a detriment to myself,
family,
and to the family, right?
Else, for sure.
But that's how they sort of build that loyal base.
That's what's really interesting, I think, is that there's so many various personalities. People think like, what personality makes it best through special operations? There's no such thing as a archetype personality. There is an archetype value, and that value is, I will be selfless to what I believe against what I feel. Right. And like, that's the archetype that rises to the top. And so what the military does a pretty dang good job of, especially with younger men, is you're taking a value that's already in that young man and you're transitioning it into a purpose. And that purpose is quite often the trident, or it's the beret, or whatever it is. Right.
So I got a civilian time. I got a question.
Yeah.
So like PJs are special ops.
Correct.
What other one? You have Green Berets.
For Air Force, you got PJs, and you got combat controllers, and now they have a couple more. During my time frame, those were the main ones, and then there was TAC P as well. I didn't know much about them going through selection. Now they have a couple others everybody's going to have to forgive me on, but I don't know exactly what they're called. Special Reconnaissance. Then obviously the Navy has SEALs, and they have EOD, which is like their EOD guys are really exceptional as well.
Explosive.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Explosive ordnance disposal.
And I guess we can add in SWIC in there, the boat guys.
That's it. You guys can get mad at Eddie. I never worked.
So do you get attached to like a unit?
Yes.
And so like you're heavy on the medical side?
Yeah, that's correct. So our job's kind of, and for all the Air Force people out there, like, hopefully you don't get your feelings hurt, but the reality is, like, the Air Force is a support entity, right? Like, yes, they can fly into deep, to deep space and do a lot of damage, right? Not that space, deep space, right? And do a lot of damage. And but at the end of the day, to like what end, right? Is it just for destruction, or is it so ground forces can start to occupy and make an impact?
Usually, I think of Air Force as you're calling in air support, right? Like you're calling in.
And it's a mechanism.
Yeah,
it's a mechanism, right? Like, it is the military. As soon as you start to think, like, they're all mutually supportive, but like at the end of the day, if I'm going to take box X, somebody has to occupy that. That's going to be the Army. Right, like at the end of the day. Now the Navy makes big impact, and the Marines do a great job of killing everybody in the box before the occupiers get there. They're fantastic at that. But you're all supporting each other. In my job specifically, there's kind of a couple different things you're doing, but one of ours was making sure that when stuff goes south, that we can pull people out of that situation.
Yeah.
So for example, like, some SEALs get stuck somewhere, they would fly a helicopter in, drop down and get
I have
them.
a perfect story. Yeah, I think it was my second deployment, or I forget which deployment it was. It was Afghanistan. We were not even on the ground for 48 hours. My OIC, we hit a daisy chain IED, lost both of his legs, and at 2 a.m, and so they had to bring him down off a mountainside, and the PJs came in and pretty much took over as assisting my OIC and getting him back and getting him treated. Because, even though we have the capacity, I guess, we would have been able to take care of him, that's not our job. Was to continue on with mission and to go, execute what we were going to do. So the PJs come in and supplement that, like, hey, we got him. Don't worry about it, and they take off. And
and so that's.
But you have more medical training, right? Like, would you say
probably
that?
have similarly equivalent? It's where we treat that probably makes, like, I could probably treat on a helicopter better than another force could, a high angle situation.
I'd say you guys are have way more. I think we get the same training, but you guys are more involved in that training.
Yeah, it's where we practice it, right?
Where we're like a jack of all trades, master of none, right? It's like, yes, I have that qualification. Oh, I have that qualification too. I have all these quals, but I don't deep dive into each one of those qualifications. It's sort of like, I can sort of half-ass that if I need to and get that done.
Yeah.
Where you guys come in. I mean, that's the experience that I've had.
Yeah, that was in fact actually. So in Afghanistan, I was just fortunate enough to be the first pararescueman attached to an ODA team. Right. So like that's how that was kind of the way that the capacity got sold. So like in Iraq, I did CSAR specifically, like what he's talking about. But I was at a special tactics unit, so like the guys that picked your guys, that was probably a full rescue unit. So it's like it's only PJ team that's covering their own security, and they're picking guys up. And so like for them, they're not fully attached to an aircraft, but they are generally associated with an aircraft, and they could be of ground capacity of some sort. There's so many variables, but more there, you think of them as a packaged unit of like 911 on steroids coming to get you.
Right?
Got
you. Like the 911 of the
that's
military.
It is.
Yeah.
And so,
but like you can clear a room, right?
Sure,
but sure. Like you have, but you guys as SEALs you're much more.
That's our main bread and butter, right? Is like doing direct action, and going in there.
It's not that you couldn't
kill or capture.
No, of course. And so, like the PJ job is like you're a force multiplier pretty much when you're on the ground, right? So like if you're running your own capacity, you're doing recovery of some sort. Like for me in Afghanistan, what I did was I was attached to an ODA team that here was like the pitch. So I was in country at first, part of a reconnaissance team, right? So we were working, our kind of main mission there was we were an all Air Force team as reconnaissance for the task force. So like when without putting terms to it, one of the fancy teams are going to go do something fancy, we were set to be reconnaissance for them beforehand. So we would be on the objective well before we get eyes on, and then the actual task force come in and do something on, right? Well, based upon what was happening in the country, we lowered a need for that. And so then there happened to be like me sitting around with one or two other JTACs, combat controllers, that were unemployed for about 5 days, right? And so we're like, hitting the freaking commanders like, hey, can we do something here? And the guy who was in charge, Colonel Mike Martin, dude had a huge set of nuts, because if somebody gets killed under your command doing a job that they're not specifically billeted for, it's a dangerous outcome for them. Right?
You better have a good explanation why that person was on that
That's
op.
right. Yeah. So I was in country, still doing a unique mission, which is part of a reconnaissance team doing something kind of unique. But when that kind of dried up, he had the guts and wherewithal to go like, I'm going to go here. He told me, it's like, hey, listen, and like 2 weeks before I got in country, good friend, combat controller, Tim Davis, he was killed. ODA 3123 is who he was with. That's the team I got attached to, right? So like, definitely with the mindset of like, we're going to go kill as many of these presumably bad guys that we felt were bad guys at the time as well. And so he was like, hey, listen, Colonel Martin was like, just do me a favor, don't get killed. All right, it's gonna suck for your family. It's gonna suck for me.
Roger that.
And so this was the pitch, because this was not super early in the war, but it was like some of the different ODA teams and stuff didn't necessarily know what we were capable of either, right? And so what I told him when I got to him, I go, hey, listen, I know your medics are super squared away. I know you guys are really great at all your combat clearance and everything. Like, let's go to the range. I'll go with you guys. I'll show you guys I'm more than capable. Because as a PJ, you work with so many units, you got to be pretty well versed on everybody's tactics, right? And be able to flow in with it. So I went to the range, I worked with them, and our mindset for us was always, I want to be able to be more fit. I want to be able to shoot better than other guys. I want to be better at medicine. I want to be better at everything, because no matter what, I'm showing up in a support element, part of their unit, so I better be able to hold my own.
Almost got to prove yourself to them.
Always. And if you can't accept that, then you're gonna have your own problems.
Right? And the beauty of it is, if you do come in with that mindset, because I've had PJs attached to us and CCTs, and it's always like, wolf pack mentality. They'll come in and we're like, who the heck are these? Yeah, you're sniffing around like, do I want? And as a unit that you get attached to, you are like, can I trust these people?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
there's a lot of stuff involved.
There's a ton of
not just with tactics and everything else, but if you get a guy like comes in and is like proving himself, like, hey, I'm constantly striving to be as good or better. Then you are just taken into the fold, and you're like, okay, you're one of us, and that's how you sort of get along.
Exactly, and so that was my pitch to the team leaders. I said, hey, look, I want to multiply what you guys got going on, man. Like, in any way, shape, or form, I tell you what, if you want me to just do the most mundane task, I can do that as well. But so it makes sense from a capacity standpoint, just knowing my job, I feel like this is where I would serve you guys well, which is I'll run with your teams as well. And the medic, because they split up. So whatever medic you have that doesn't want to do the job of being stuck with command and control, basically there's kind of you have a main element and a back. Now, everybody's going to get into something because you just don't know what's going to happen when you go into a building. Afghanistan, right? There's a bunch of clay walls with,
hut building.
Yeah. It's a place, a compound, right? Plus him up, he can go up, and I'll stay with this unit. And if one of our guys gets hit, I'll leave on the aircraft and make sure he doesn't die on the way to the hospital, right? Because, plenty of times guys will get hit and they'll get hand off to another medic that's, not to diss on the other medics, but just the level of preparedness is different. And treating inside of an aircraft is drastically different, right? Like it has its own constraints to it. Yeah. And
also, like you being a force multiplier, so like we have our own medics on the ground,
exactly.
But if we have them with us and something does happen, he can leave with that person that's injured and not take 2 more people away from our force, because our medics also have other jobs.
That's right.
To get the assault done. So
that's right. So it was that, and then we were in kind of a high terrain situation, and so we have a lot of high angle rescue as well. And so it's like, here's the deal. I'll back you guys up, whatever you need. We'd already shot and a whole bunch of stuff at this point, so they knew I was more than capable. And I was like, whatever you guys need. And so I ended up running with them through the whole time in Afghanistan. Didn't get killed, did a good enough job that, these weren't my decisions that put me there, so I don't take any credit for it. But it was good because it changed and shaped what it allowed PJs to do going forward, which is how they ended up with the Rangers, is how they ended up with so many of the different ODA teams, and the mission changed so much, but just mostly because I didn't get killed and did a good job. But, so that was good. Awesome. That was fruitful. It was neat. And then, man, got out because
what year did you get out?
I got out in October of 2009.
2009?
Yeah. And
when did you two meet?
We met in the military. I was also in the military.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I forget about it too. I joined for different reasons. I grew up in a very small town in Illinois. I was raised on a farm, not an animal farm, but a soybean and corn farm. So I knew that, kind of similar to Jordan, my senior year of high school, my parents told me they were not going to pay for college. And so I was like, okay. So I did like the co-op, you can do like a co-op thing where you leave half day at school and you go maybe work for, you intern for somebody. So State Farm headquarters is close to where I'm from. And so I said, okay, cool. I'll work for State Farm. I'll go there, half the day after school or during school. If I like it, then I'll go to Illinois State University and I'll work at State Farm to pay for my college. Well, that first semester I went and interned for State Farm. It was just like 3 hours a day, 3 times a week. I hated it. I hated sitting at a desk. I was like, I can't do this. I'm not made to just sit at a desk. So I had to figure out some options. Nobody in my family is in the military. I had never met anybody in the military at all. Like, I've never seen anybody in uniform.
When she says small town, by the way, it's like a mile long, no stoplights,
no stoplight.
one stop sign.
Nothing.
One of those Midwest towns.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I'm from Indiana, so.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So never met anybody in the military. But I knew that if I went to the military, 1, I would get out of that small town, and 2, I heard that your college would be paid for. So I said, cool. And again, I just drove to the recruiter's office. I was thinking Navy. I don't know why. I was just like, that sounds fun. But the Navy recruiter wasn't there. So
thank goodness.
Now I'm so thankful.
I said you on a ship would
Oh
have
my
been
God.
absolutely terrible.
That was God. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Didn't know about any of that stuff. But the Air Force recruiter was there, and I spoke to him, and I said, I think I want to join the military. He's like, cool, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. So I read, like, some of the jobs, and the Intel analyst thing kind of stuck out to me. So I said I want to be an Intel analyst, and signed up to be a signals analyst, and I joined the Air Force and left a week after I graduated high school. And so I left, went through tech school. My first station was in Colorado at Buckley Air Force Base, a lot of space stuff, which was really fun. But at that time, it took a while to get your top secret clearance because of 9/11. They were kind of going through that process of, like, you don't just get your clearance.
She's got shady tendencies, so.
Obviously, I mean, from the way, just looking at it.
Yeah. So anyway,
Spy.
It was going to take a while to get my clearance, and we were working for some space stuff, which was cool, but I wanted to do my real job. and I didn't want to sit around. So I volunteered to go to Korea. So I went to South Korea for a year, which was super fun.
We're in Osan?
Osan, yeah. I was at Osan, which, again, you have to be careful of being a female at Osan. So I literally never went out. I never went out when I was at Osan. I just worked and did college. So I wanted to graduate and get my bachelor's. So then after Osan, I was supposed to get, you're supposed to get like your base of choice if you kind of volunteer for like not a crappy base, but I mean, nobody really wants to go to South Korea. So they said, okay, cool. Well, we have your assignment. You're going to go to Alaska. And I'm like, I'm not going to Alaska. Like, I didn't sign up to go.
I need a tan.
Yeah, like, I want to go to Germany. I want to go to Hawaii. They're like, no, you're going to Alaska. I'm like, no, take me to the office that does these because I am not going to Alaska. So I ended up sitting down with the person that does the jobs, and I'm like, you have to figure this out. I didn't volunteer for Korea to just go to Alaska. So they did some calls, and they're like, okay, there's a base in Florida. They need like a couple analysts. It's Hurlburt Field. And I'm like, what is Hurlburt Field? What are special operations? I didn't work with any special operators. Everything I did was against, knowing foreign assets. Like, I knew everything about, certain countries. I didn't know anything about what we did in the Air Force.
Yeah.
So I
that's
looked
one
it
of
up.
the things people probably don't realize about intel is like, if somebody has an intel job, you might think like they know a ton about our capacities. Like, no, they just know about everybody else.
I knew nothing about what we did. I knew nothing about what we were doing. Some aspects in Colorado I did, but not in Korea. So they're like, we can send you to Hurlburt Field. I looked it up, and I'm like, cool, well, what do we do? And they're like, well, nobody really knows what they do at Hurlburt Field. I'm like, okay. So, but I wanted to go somewhere hot. I wanted to go to Hawaii. They didn't have anything in Hawaii. I wanted to go overseas in Germany, but they didn't have anything. So I settled for Florida, and then ended up meeting Jordon at Airman Leadership School, at the school to get your sergeant. Staff sergeant, whatever.
Yeah, so I actually broke a leg on a jump in 2006, like August 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming in on final on a blacked out halo jump. We were all kitted up. It was a tack jump. It was like kind of a culmination exercise. So we're on oxygen. We're on. We got NVGs up at the time. You know what? Maybe not NVGs yet. This might have predated that. Probably memories are mixing. But I'm coming in on final. And somebody on Ranger Field, on the camp out there, they were going through school, and one of the students had built like 4 4x4s and wrapped it with chicken wire to keep their dog in while they were in school, right? And so it's in the middle of the field. I'm coming on final. Nice. It's blacked out, no illume, and I'm holding 50 and 50, right? Which, for like everybody, that just means you're holding like 50% brakes on your parachute. Yep. You can't do 100% or you're going to drop straight down, and that's super.
And then you will break both legs.
Then you're going to break for sure. So I'm holding 50 and 50, and I'm kind of like canted off like I'm ready to PLF, right? Everything's nice and tight, ready to go, and PLF means basically like a fancy fall so you don't break stuff. And right as I'm coming on final, boom, it's like I feel my foot get grabbed and tore out, like so it gets spins all the way backwards, and I like, boom, go face first down into the ground. And I felt it like, and I was like, oh man, did that break? Maybe I rolled it, and I reached down, and it's like a golf club turned sideways. Oh. And this as a medic, if they come over and they check for a pulse and there's no pulse, right, then you're going to put it back into anatomical position. And like that's all that went through my head real quick was like, I'm just putting this anatomical right now, right? So it was spun out and up. So I grabbed it just real quick and was like, I was just laid back, right?
Yeah.
And and that's exactly it. I'm not even tough, dude. It was just like, I know what's going to happen. Like this is the outcome, and better get it there right now, right? So I spun it and then went back, called for a chem light. My buddies came and got me. So many life lessons in this, but none of us had narcotics. None of us had drugs because everybody else thought somebody else had the med bag when we were jumping, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, we learned all kinds of lessons on accountability. And so I was, like, supposed to deploy, like, a month after this. And because I broke my leg, I couldn't. So I just sat around disgruntled for a little bit, studied really hard, passed the NCO test, and then went to ALS, and that's where I met her at.
That's where we met each other.
Had God not
we
spun that
both didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
We both.
Because she was supposed to be.
I was transferring over to a newer job in the intelligence career field, so I was going to fly. So I was supposed to go to SEER school, and then they had an opening, and they're like, okay, you have to go to sergeant school, which I didn't. I wanted to be the first intel analyst to kind of switch over to this new job they have now, but I had to go because they had a slot, and so I had never met. I didn't even really think about special operators. I mean,
Tell what's a day in the life. She didn't want to work in a desk job, and then she got stuck in a skiff.
And then I got stuck in a skiff, which is of course, but it was interesting. You know, like you're doing interesting stuff. Yeah. So like my view. A quick
description for a skiff for anybody that doesn't know what a skiff is you're basically in like a locked in type of box or closet.
Like
the size of this studio right here.
This studio
like
is
this.
Safe?
Oh yeah.
Because
so like this room right here would be a safe that you cannot.
No cell phones.
No phones.
No nothing.
There's no internet, right?
I mean, you have an alarm to get in, like an alarm to.
There's internet that's only like
information can get
that's
out.
right. Yeah. Only secret stuff can speak to each other.
That
SCIF
Apple
stands for
headquarters.
Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility.
That's
so like you work in a safe.
So she didn't work around any operators.
Everybody
she worked
my
around was like
world
really
was
nice
like
people.
World of Warcraft. Like everybody that was an analyst was like into like World of Warcraft party, Dungeons and Dragons. So like my idea of the military.
A bunch of super intelligent people.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, I loved it. And I'm an introvert, so I loved it. Yeah. So my view of the Air Force and the military was way different than like most people.
And similarly, you know this from being in the Navy. My view of the Air Force was completely different than hers because I'd only ever been with operators. So then when I went to sergeant school or whatever, right?
Yeah, then you're around like the actual conventional Air Force, and you're like, what? That's the same in the Navy.
So
That's so funny.
So different.
Yeah, this guy shows up, him and like 3 other PJs, and we're all sitting in this like auditorium. And they're, of course, the late ones. They, like, show up with their berets, and they're, like...
Sunglasses on top of their head, like...
And I'm like, who are these...
Super handsome.
Too cool for school.
Who do these people think they are? Like, who do these guys think they are? And Jordan sits in front of me, and, of course, like, acts like I'm not even there.
Yeah, I turned around and talked to some dude I'd never met before, just talking trash, because I saw her, and I was like... I'm about to give her the no look, so I'm just like hard talking to this dude, talking about trash. Didn't even entertain the eye contact at all, just turned back around.
Oh, yeah. So, anyway...
I got to capture her attention right now.
Yeah. So we ended up being in the same class together, and he's like, "You want to be my study buddy?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, 'cause I want to do great, right?" So I'm like, I always want to be the best at this, and so we're study buddies, and we go to the library every day, and this dude gets like freaking 100% on everything, and I'm missing. I don't know why I missed questions. Probably because I was just quizzing you the whole time versus you quizzing me.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I do well with information. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we met, and then he deployed like right after.
So we were just friends the whole time through. We didn't actually have a relationship. She was smart. She was the only woman wise enough to be like, no way, stay away from me. Yeah. We'll study. Stay away from me, right? And she kept me at arm's bay, and so we developed a legit friendship, and then still friends. I left for Iraq literally like a week after I graduated, right? So it's like real quick train up. I went up and trained up with a task force and then took off. And so I would just like call her on an Iridium phone, right? Or whatever. Yeah, as often as possible after we get done with mission stuff and everything else. I'd call her and we chatted a bunch the whole time I was deployed. And like we wwent from just friends, as crazy as this is, to like when I get home, let's start a family. Yeah. Right? Wow. Legit. So we went from just friends to me getting home in like November of 2007. We purposely got pregnant with our son in December of 2007 and been together since. Yeah. Got married right away and crazy, I guess. But
so then I got out of the military. If you're pregnant, you can get out of the military. And I had 1 year left of my enlistment, and my commander said I probably would have to deploy, which is ridiculous, like literally right after having my son. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? My husband's gone 300 days out of the year. My family's not here. And they're like, well, you got to figure it out. And
this was of the
military's like, not our problem.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like,
it's like, well, one less troop is your problem.
Yeah, exactly. So I made the decision. I got out. You have to get out. Well, back then you had to get out before you had the baby. Now I think you have like up to a year to decide after you have the baby.
Yeah, so that
how could you not get? I mean, like what? Like have someone else take care of your newborn?
That's why was my question.
There's people that do it,
and there are a lot of people that do it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's it's multi-causal. Some, it's not that everybody.
Like I hope they do a good job.
Yeah, like what if I want a nurse? Like what are all? Sorry.
Yeah, and that's especially the military. Like, there's a lot of fantastic stuff. There's a lot of less than fantastic stuff, and so with anybody in the military, my son, he wants to do the military as well, right? Sending him to a reserve unit down at Patrick, but
oh really?
That's the goal. At least then he understands what his circle of influence looks like and where he's going to go and those things. But it's like everything else in life. There is micro and macro situations. And the macro level, they don't always take care of guys, right? The micro level, guys you're committed to left and right, they're going to take care of you for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you're not doing everything you're doing because somebody in a super high position that you somehow hold like this crazy respect for them, and therefore everything they say is law in your mind. That's not the reality. Most guys that serve want to serve, and that's the best opportunity to do it.
And they want to be around others that are like them, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, I call it like shooters taking care of shooters.
Bingo.
You know? Yeah.
Looking back now, are you glad that you left the military then and transitioned out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I was only going to do 6 years. I wanted to get my degree, and then I wanted to eventually transfer over to like the FBI or something like that, which I was going to do until we had our kid. And I was like, I am not leaving him. Like, no way.
Yeah.
You know, so
that was the catalyst.
Yeah.
I had only planned on doing 6, but after I watched our son grow up, like my last year with TDYs has gone 300 days.
Yeah.
Right. So you know how it is. And so I watched him roll over for the first time through videos and crawl. And this is back before like Wi-Fi was super prevalent. So like in Afghanistan, like when we would be back near enough to the State Department, I would have to like sneak over. I'd jump over the State Department's fence, sneak over to get close enough to their Wi-Fi access, and be able to call her back on.
Yeah.
It wasn't even Zoom back then. What was it? It
AOL
was
Skype.
chat.
Skype.
Oh,
Skype was the.
it was.
That was the
Skype.
first. Yeah. We went through those days.
I forgot about Skype.
Yeah, that's right. So
That's right.
that's what we would call on, and we didn't know anything. She had a Facebook because she was in school.
Yeah.
But she was like, "You need to get this thing called Facebook so we can message each other." And I was like, "What the fuck is Facebook?"
I forgot about that.
Right? And this many years later, I still don't have one. But
Good on you.
That's it. But so, like, to circle back to kind of that first question about like with our son, one of the things I always try to tell my son is everybody like thinks that let me rephrase, there is far more heroes than will ever be highlighted as heroes.
Yep.
Right. And here's how I define a hero, as I tell him, in the same thing as like, all you can ever do is be prepared for the moment. Destiny will set whether the moment lands upon you or not. But like when you look and you go, man, that guy did really incredible stuff. The question is, are you challenging yourself to be able to do of the same capacity, right, when the time calls? Because that was a big lightning for me, is because I joined post 9/11, I was like, you know what, once I go to combat, then I'll, right? And so,
That's what everybody
in Iraq,
thinks.
we ran 47 missions in Iraq on very high value situations. We, like our trail aircraft, took an RPG to the nose, and like, in some miraculousness, it didn't end up igniting off.
Bounced off.
Yeah, big dent in the cone, but didn't go off, and it was close enough to probably cause collateral impact, right? We're flying through Baghdad the whole time. We took rounds all the time. In Afghanistan, the one night I wasn't doing a half on the same helo assault force, so the team I was with, we were with the commandos there, and so we did a lot of helo infills to go fight, as opposed to like driving a vehicle, praise God, right? Yeah. So the one night I switched aircrafts, it's like the exact spot that I set every night took 9 rounds, right? So it's like there's all these like situations that just miraculously didn't land or cause issue. Anything different could have happened. And that's why I always tell my son, it's like, you look at these situations, the question is, are you prepared for that? And after going to Iraq, I came home and I was like, you know what? Because I didn't treat a ton of people in Iraq. We did a lot of damage, but I didn't treat a lot of people. And then in Afghanistan, so I was like, you kind of feel like, as young men, you're like, I haven't completed this. I'm not a hero. I'm not this or whatever.
I haven't fulfilled whatever is in my head where I need to fulfill. Yeah,
exactly. This preconceived notion. And so then when I went to Afghanistan, I was fortunate enough to be in a rare first to do position. And like, I mean, for instance, in one night there, like, I was fortunate to not have to do too much work ever with our guys, right? Like our guys, but I did end up treating a bunch of people that were collateral to the impact that was happening, right? Like on one night, we had went
like local civilians, you're saying?
Or bad guys. Yeah. The situation, right?
Yeah.
Bad guys is the way we define it, right? Not Americans, right? So, or even some of our partnered force type stuff.
Yeah,
so
like commandos.
Exactly, right? Because they'll figure out how to get shot pretty well as well, right?
They'll do it themselves.
Yeah,
to
sometimes
themselves.
they shoot each other and shoot our guys. More than once our guys have been killed just by. And again, like it gets super political quickly, but I've never also been in a situation where somebody puts my family at under threat of death, and now I'm under duress as to what I'm going to do. And this does happen to them as well. So I don't condone any of their actions, but if you said to me, like, I'm going to kill all your family if you don't shoot Eddie, it's like, Eddie, it's been real, bro.
Yep.
That's an easy dividing line for me. And I've never been in that situation, so I don't presume to make judgment unless I have.
That's a good word.
So, like in Afghanistan, we did a hit on this target, and we killed this main IED facilitator in the daytime, by the way. Eddie, was terrible, right? So we're coming in on a half and taking effective rounds, and we were a 2-chalk infill. And so the second one, it's like we're coming in. I'm on the second chalk. I get on headphones right away. I plug it in the aircraft, right? This Air Force supporting Army stuff. None of these cats got stuff, but I can talk to the aircraft. I can talk to the team leader with. And I was like, hey, we're taking effective fire when we come in. It's like, all right. So they let the team know. Half our team's already on the ground, like trying to start to set up. We're coming in. We're taking rounds, broad daylight on just coming in on final. We get out. It gets off real quick. Me and this Terp and a combat controller got to like flank the backside of this hill to get up to this OP to be able to drop on what we're doing. And like right away we get engaged with this dude. I don't shoot him, but one of our guys shoots him. And that night his family went to like his mourning, right? It like 31 people packed out inside of this jingle truck going to his funeral, right? Because they have their own burial procedures, and I don't presume to know what they all are, but they're going to that. On the way back, his family hits an IED, right? 8 of them die right away. The other 23, guess where they come to? They come seeking help from the Americans. And so, like, we stayed up for nearly 24 hours, like 48 in total, treating these people in like this kind of very remote location. So they came to us. One of the dudes is like got a fully like amputated hand, and he's like in his 20s, right? And it's like, how'd that happen, right? And he's like, fighting the Russians. I don't know what that time frame was.
Yeah.
Fighting me, you know what I mean? And so the women were like, keeping covered up, and you could barely treat them. You had to like tell her for sure she's gonna die if she doesn't let me like fix this right now.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's like, all right.
Oh yeah,
come here.
They're pretty
because they won't
hard bent on
exposed skin.
Yeah, I mean it's their values. It's their values, and hats off to them for even in such a wild scenario holding true to them. So I ended up treating a bunch of people, did a bunch of stuff, and came home and I was like, I feel the exact same, right? The exact same. This actually would eventually led me to Christ, but it was the exact same. It's this roller coaster happiness, right? So it's like you'd like put a little something to fill that void, and then it dry back up and you're back to the reality, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you feel that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie and I had a long convo on this before, but
it's a dangerous game.
That's it.
That I succumbed to.
That's it.
Like I just like keep sending me back. Like that's what was filling that void in me. Like, and you never feel, like you said, you never feel like however you want to, like the hero you want to be, or like the man that you're like, oh, this is what I am attaining to be. There's always something more that you can do, you know. And you're plus around the peers that you're around, and you talk about heroes, like like I worked with heroes, like legitimate dudes who were willing to keep going back and back and back, and then a lot of them paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of that, I don't know if it's guilt or if it's like, nope, I need to keep going back until, and it almost comes down to until I pay the ultimate sacrifice, because that is the level.
Yeah, because anything less feels like, you didn't own up to what maybe your responsibility is.
Yes.
Right? And it's not that you have a desire to die. It's just, for instance, Tim's son, who I said I went to the same team, his son's the same age as my son, right? So I remember my son's crawling, his son was crawling. His son now is the same age as my son, right? And his dad died in, 2009, you know what I mean? Radical situation. And so it's like, how do you reconcile some of that? And for my son, what I told him is like, son, like, these men, even the guys that we know have done amazing things, it happened to be their lottery card and moment to do the situation, right? Like,
Do you feel it's just their friend, like a death there, or I mean, is there a day that goes, or several days that go by that you don't think about them or think about his family, or like, Does that push you to go back again?
It doesn't push me to go back. I don't have any desire to be back in. I do have a desire to serve. For me, I kind of landed a little differently. I saw some of that, and I went, okay, who is going to, like, I brought a child into this world, right? Like, whose responsibility is that, like, first and foremost? And what I saw was there will always be young, childless men as well that are coming to do these jobs as well. And I was young and childless, right? And childish as well, but you know, worked hard and did really well while I was in. And I also know what like the impacts of it are on your body. And so for me, I do think there's guys that can do 20 years. I mean, you did close to 20 before.
Over 20, a little over.
Right,
yeah.
over 20. So it's like perfect example. There's guys that can do it, and then there's some that, like, for me, it just, once I saw the impact I was having, but I also saw the capability of young guys who didn't have kids coming behind me, I said, you know what?
Gotcha.
I don't feel guilty because
they'll fill that.
They're going to fill that void. There will always be.
And so it's almost like your responsibility as a father began to outweigh.
It was retirements for me. I kept going to retirements, right? And at every retirement, I would watch men like apologize to their families.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I describe it as the most selfless and most selfish job that you can do, because it's selfless in the fact that, yes, the end all be all is like, yeah, I'm willing to give my life for, I guess, this country, but most importantly, like the brothers to the right and left of me. But it's also the most selfish, because if you're married and have kids, that job, everything revolves around it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, your wife and kids have to accept the fact that you're putting that job first above them, which is a very hard thing to own up to, which I eventually did, halfway through my career. It was like, I will do whatever it takes for this job. But and I get it. Like, I think that's the most, like, a very mature thing for you to do at that young, point in your
wasn't
career. Like,
exactly. And like you said, it wasn't like, if you ask, would I rather be like dealing with the county on getting some permits done and like work, or being, in the heat of it, like,
I guess we should say that he got out a year after Slade was born, and then we opened our first gym. So we both
10 days after
we opened our
back from Afghanistan,
our first gym.
Right.
So we like wanted to venture off into another career, but I mean, it took a ton of time. Like, as a business owner, it's nonstop. So it's like we didn't really sacrifice. Like, we sacrificed in you not being there for sure. Like, you came back to us.
From the child perspective. I've had nearly like the sacrifice that you've made in plenty of.
Well, I mean, it's still the sacrifice. The sacrifice. It's whether it's.
But
5 or 10.
How was that, like, going from there? Because you come out.
Oh, tell them how you were.
Oh, you mean like from a societal interaction standpoint?
Dealing with civilians and not a team room. It was hard on me. It was hard on me.
I'm still learning.
Yeah. He didn't understand.
Social etiquette.
Yeah, he didn't understand it. And I was like, you can't talk to women and men that aren't in the military like that. They don't get it, like,
it was
you can't kick a water bottle across the gym and tell them to shut up and not drink the water. Like, do the work. And I'm like
somebody,
no.
I was very young, and as like, you were alluding to earlier, is like, combat is black and white. Like, the world we live in is honestly far more complicated than combat. Like, combat is like
it's simple.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. You got to have a high risk tolerance, but it's simple. Like, it's far. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, even in your situation, like, there's everybody that like thinks even your situation is like this, what I would have done.
Yeah.
This, bro, you just never been in that situation. So like, pump the brakes on what you think the reality is. And I don't presume.
You get that probably a lot, where guys, like, I hear that some of guys like to talk. It's like, dude, I have no idea what war's like. I don't talk to war.
You know what?
Like,
I think perhaps more people know than they realize, and because stress is stress, right? Decision fatigue is decision fatigue. For me, I felt like combat at times was just so much more clear than.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like, and like we talked about, it's very black and white. And it's hard to explain that to a person that hasn't been there, but it's also you you have to learn to live in the gray as
Right.
well, right?
That's
like
it.
war is ugly,
Right.
and there's a lot of nasty things
Right.
that happen in war, and a lot of them have to be done
Right.
if you want to win,
Right.
right? And that's what I think people don't get is they look at America like, oh, well, we're better than that, and we don't do these things. And it's like, well, actually we do, and we have been doing them in every war because that's how wars are won.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to talk about that stuff, right? It's all pushed under the rug like, hey, we're the heroes. But I think the transition when you get out, and like we're talking about going into civilian, like having to deal with civilians is we're so used to working under that black and white, and then also the amount of stress. Like we're very, and I think what I found with myself is I lost the ability to empathize,
Right.
and like actually talk to like, oh, why are you feeling this way?
Right.
And where it's like, I don't want and it's not that we're not like these robots where we can't empathize. It's like we've trained ourselves not to be like, just get the fucking job done.
Right.
Like, I don't want to hear your excuse.
Right. Yep.
Just do it.
That was his problem. So he would
That's too straightforward.
Somebody would come into the gym and go, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, he'd go, cool.
Dude, savage to help them do that.
He was like mission oriented. Like, this is he or she wants to lose 20 pounds. Here's what you got to eat. Here's what you got to do. And then it would happen like they would come in eating a muffin.
Rolling with a
and
croissant.
he's like, why are you?
Smacks it out of their hand.
No.
Not that far,
No
but
full blown battery.
Fat shaming commence.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hope you're enjoying that croissant.
Yeah, it was hard for me
That'd be awesome.
to understand. You know, it's like as he talks about.
It's like and I see it from you guys. You guys care so much that you kind of take the emotions out of it. Like, no, if this is what you want, this is what you have to do. And he didn't understand that, like, you know, that's not how everybody thinks. They don't just go, I want to lose 20 pounds, I'm going to eat this.
I have an engineering thought process by nature. I'm very mathematical by nature. So it's not that I don't understand that there are feelings involved, and definitely didn't understand then. It's that it doesn't matter what my opinion or feelings are. Yeah. There is going to be an outcome. And when your math is leading to that outcome, if we can't be honest with ourselves about what that looks like, then that's the inevitable outcome. And there's no amount of like, you can't dismiss it, you can't talk it away, you can't say something. That is what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's logic.
That is the real world.
It's logic, and I mean, as men tend to, masculine tends to prioritize logic, right? Where women will prioritize emotions sometimes. Yeah. By default, it's not that they both have emotions, they both have logic.
For sure.
But women a lot of times, like, they will feel through life.
Right.
Well, I can't imagine feeling primarily through life. Yeah. Like, I think through life, right? Like, I logically.
For sure. You know,
I have feelings, but I like
running, Exactly.
But it's not how I lead my life.
Right. And the danger is whenever I exalt my thought process over others. And so that's what I had to learn a lot. And so for us.
He's great now.
Yeah. I've grown a lot. Jesse, Jordan, don't do that. Right?
I would just like.
What's the problem? You know what I mean? Don't say that. You know, I mean, then again, we started the gym in 2009, right? So
but we grew it fast. We had an amazing community. I mean,
our community was great.
It was amazing. You know, there was just little things that,
and
people knew that he was an
is that Militia Fitness?
So.
That's correct, Militia Fitness. Yeah, yes. And so they gave me a lot of grace for the background and you know, maybe where I failed to be able to articulate. Listen, I really want to help you. Right? Like, you know what I mean?
I'm like coaching Jordan in the back on what to say.
Goose Fraba.
That's it. And to like your point, you know, our standing hypothesis is like, if you look at the men and women dynamic and like very quickly, in my personal opinion, I think that probably the number one problem in the world today is the undervalue of women, right? And because like really quickly, the logical man in mind goes, this is probably like, and I know you're not saying this, I just, for others,
sure.
that the man says, well, then this is the most logical, best outcome, right? Which was probably my issue then is like, that's not going to help. But what I failed to take into account is it's not just what this person is eating that's going to lead to that. It is what are the subsequent emotions and situations that are leading to that decision as well, right? And so our hypothesis is like, from an analogy to just, you know, give an allegory for this, her and I and our kids are in the wilderness, right? And I can hear tigers roaring of the distance, right? And I'm like, we need to get up that mountain right there. We got to get some high ground here. The man's mindset, it goes, if we stay, therefore we die, right? The woman's mindset is built to look for what's going to kill us between now and the tigers and now and the top of this mountain. They're constantly built to find what I'm not paying attention to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
The kids are
that's a
thirsty.
very
They're
good
hungry. How are they
analogy.
going to get up the
Yeah,
mountain?
that's
Are
right.
we going
And so that's
yeah.
exactly what happens is I go, hey, we're getting up that mountain. She's like, there's a bunch of jagged rocks, right? And so for us in our relationship, and what I really encourage people, period, is like one of the things that, and this took forever. I mean, we've had every type of conflict and argument,
Sure.
strong personality, but so devoted to each other that we figured it out, is there's 3 options that are going to happen. One is she says, hey, there's a bunch of jagged rocks. I don't think we should go up there, because like that's generally what she's going to say, right? Or she'll, because she's very clever and she's a woman, she'd be like, my ankle hurts, right? So it's like they're not going to give necessarily that front end, like, I think the kids are going to die climbing up that. They give a little bit safer of an answer on
A
the
little
front.
hint.
Exactly.
That's it. Or, try to figure out how to drive the outcome to be safe from what's happening. And so then the men go like, your ankles are fine. I'll tape them. Let's go. But you're solving the wrong problem, right? And so this is where we lose a lot as men talking with our wives, instead of going like, okay, help me understand what's going on with your ankle, right? And after like 15 questions, then I realize she's worried that we're going to die climbing the rocks. I'm like, that's a pretty good point. So step 1 is like of 3 choice outcome is, one is we're not going to take that choice anymore because her point is so valid that it's accurate. Step 2 is I'm going to see if we can mitigate this, right? And so this is the second choice, which is like, all right, you're right, those rocks are pretty crazy. Let's go around to the side and see if there's a better outlet. Let's go this way, or hey, let's fashion a quick ladder, or whatever it is. She brings up a valid point, and I know we're still going to the top of this mountain, but can I mitigate some of what is a valid concern? Like, is the answer to get to the top of the mountain so we don't get eaten by the tigers, or is the answer to get to the top of the mountain and have our kids all jagged up and die of staph in 3
Or
days?
is there a safe way to get up the mountain?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So that's number 2. And number 3 is we walk over to the right, we walk over to the left, and there's no better path.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know
You
you
have to do
you
it.
think
You
I'm
make that ultimate
crazy,
decision.
and you think that this is, and I understand why you feel that way.
Well,
We're still going up this mountain.
yeah. Well, and I think that's honestly, I've the last couple of years, I've really studied and read a lot about this and learned a lot. Still learning, but like with the dynamic, you need both, right? Like God
Absolutely.
said, it's not good for a man to be alone.
That's right.
It's not good. Like you need someone else. You need
right.
this helpmate. Now, as a leader, you're ultimately responsible.
That's right.
It falls on you as a man, but you can't do it without her.
That's right.
You need her input, and you got to, and it's on you to learn how to decipher that like woman needs into like what, the communication part of it.
That's right.
And both of you guys are strong personalities, but you're both probably very different personalities.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
Yeah.
She's more the free spirit
Yeah.
and the,
She's
Which-
let's do something new. Let's do something.
which is very feminine, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the most beautiful thing ever.
Yep.
But as the man, it's like, hey, I'm like, wait,
Well,
what do you mean?
That's right. And so
I think he's done a good job now by like letting me express my fears, because
for 2 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah, seriously.
it helps, because if not, I'll give little tidbits and I won't tell my real fear. But now I can give him my real fear, and then he can not squash it and just be like, that's stupid, like that's not gonna happen. We can talk through it.
Yeah.
We can get down to like, why do I feel this way? Why do I have this emotion?
And
Dude,
imagine,
so-
like, take the go ahead.
So get this. So I started doing this about a year ago, and I've probably talked about it on the podcast. I don't know, but I started just listening to my wife. She'll say, like, we're driving down the road, I'm quiet, and in my head I'm thinking about, how'd that guy pass my guard? Like, like I had
That's great.
like, and I'm thinking about jujitsu.
You're
or something.
halfway there. You're missing a crucial
We get
step.
home and she's like upset, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Well, while we're driving, like you were upset with me. You're thinking
yeah.
about this, and
Yeah.
like it was at dinner earlier, and
You're right. Should I
and
use
I'm
butterfly
going,
hooks?
what? Yeah, like, and I'm literally, and so immediately my first thought is, oh no, we can fix this right now.
yeah.
Right.
Problem
Yep.
one.
Yeah,
We
that's
can fix this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Francesca, I wasn't thinking about that. Like I was thinking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like I'm not mad at you.
So you don't think about me?
Well, immediately
You're not thinking about me. I got it.
immediately she'll be like, it is. You can see it on her face. It was like I just dismissed her, and I'm like, I just fixed the problem.
Yep.
Right.
Instead,
Right.
I started going, okay, so what I hear is like, you thought I was upset with you. You're upset. Tell me more.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
law
I just say,
school,
get it all out.
helped even more because I learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, get it all out. Tell me everything.
Because we don't want you to fix it.
She wants to be felt. She wants to be
Hear me.
feel like she's heard.
Yeah.
I never have, I'll leave that conversation, and I won't even say, "Hey, I wasn't thinking about," because she doesn't care if I was thinking and upset with her.
You're exactly right.
And it's the craziest thing in the world to me. As a man, you're like, how does it not matter that what you're saying was false?
Right.
Like that wasn't actually truth. She doesn't care about the truth, and she just needed to be heard of her feelings in that moment right then.
Right.
Yes.
Nuts to me.
Well, you know, it's like a crazy analogy. It's like if I took a bunch of psilocybin right now, my reality is going to be drastically different than everybody else's. So who's right?
Yeah.
Right. And so real quick, this is where you have to be careful not to kind of exalt your thoughts as well, like for me. And so it's not that I'm like under this delusion that at times their perspective is probably not what we would consider the straightforward view of the facts, right? But the difference is, if that's how she viewed life, we would all die. We would mash the kids up going up the mountain, right? It's not about like, there's a tiger coming, we got to go. So, but they're going to get hurt on these rocks. It's like, there's a fucking tiger coming, right? That's what's going through your head. But her worldview is just, it is based upon, as I'm feeling this, that's real, right? You know what I mean? And so whose perspective is right? And so to me, the two things biblically that are the most accurate is exactly what you said, is that Adam had a problem. Like Eve was his solution. But like men think that we're the man, right? Like I'm the man, right? Like I'm stronger than she is, right? Like I'm so logical in this. Like, yeah, well, by yourself, you had a fucking problem, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? You had a problem. She was the problem solver.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, second is your wife is the client, right? Like it says, as Christ died for the church, right? You shall die for your wife. So that means, Christ comes, lives obediently, does everything he can, and has such a high value for women that like he hasn't even completed his mission in John 21, right? Or 20. He's dead. He rises. He hasn't yet ascended. That's his mission. Come here and finish the job. And yet he still stops to have a conversation with Mary to prevent her from refilling the same pain she felt when Lazarus, her brother, died, right? So like when you look at Christ's actions, he stops and goes, hold on, hey, it's okay. But you got to let go of me. I still have to go finish the job here, right? And so then the back end of the Bible, it makes it clear that like she's the client. I am a captain of the ship, but she's the client. She says, hey, this is what I want to do in life. This is where we want to go. Roger that, I'm going to take you. And sometimes I'm driving and she comes out and she goes like, we're going to hit that sandbar. And I'm like, it's okay. It's not. She's like, I'm sure we're going to hit it. It's like, it's not. But I'm driving the boat to where she wants to go. Yeah. She's not the first mate, which is how men treat their wives. It's like, she's the substandard, like, listen, I know the best way to, it's like, I'm here to serve her.
Yeah. Well, that is the way it should be. Right. I mean, and I feel like people, like couples that, I'm sure too, couples that I've known in the military or even outside now, like I meet these married civilian couples. It's hilarious to see like the dynamic,
right.
The dude is like, well, I'm in charge and like everything I say goes. And then, the wife
That's fine.
is
She's just not happy.
Exactly. I'm like, dude, she has to be miserable where, like how me and Andrea are. I'm like, yeah, as a man, biblically, I'm in charge, right? But I'm like, no, we're both in charge. Right. Like, and I realize her strengths like outweigh mine in so many areas.
Oh, fantastic.
Where I'm like, dude, yes, then you're in charge of, like, you lead the way on this because this is not my, it's just like being a leader of a platoon, right? It's like, dude, I don't know.
Number one servant is
the
leader.
Like, right. And you just know when to lead and know when to follow. And that's, I think, if you get that dynamic down and like, if both people can let their egos out of the way and be like, okay, you're taking the lead on this, go ahead. But then also knowing if you let that person take the lead and they mess up, don't sit there and be like, oh, well, see, it's like, well, then help that person, solve that problem.
Because you're a team, yeah.
Yeah,
together,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think men don't do a great job of. And one of the things I've always tried to tell her, listen, I don't presume that I'm going to make every correct choice, but I'm going to make the most accurate decision I can based upon this information. And the second that I realize I'm wrong, I'm going to make a new choice.
Well, he's always helped me too, having businesses and, being entrepreneurs. He's always said, like, no matter what happens, we're going to be okay. Like, if this doesn't work, I'll go work at Home Depot for I'll 100%. Figure it out.
That is my
I'll run a drug cartel to get the job done, whatever it takes.
Exactly.
Because we'll have fears.
Well, and that's one of the things women, like, think of great leadership, right? Like, a wife needs that security. Right. More than financial security even, because you're not going to starve, here and, like, but more than that, they need that emotional security that you are confident that you're gonna. Now, like, when I provide my wife's incredible at a lot of things, like a lot better than me at
this is a standard thing men should pay attention to.
100%. She is, and that's not a like, oh, happy wife, happy life guy. I'm not that way at all.
That's a danger.
Yeah, I'm not that way at all. It's just the facts. She has different skills than me.
For sure.
And some skills are a lot better than mine, where I'm like, hey, I'm going to delegate this to you because, man, you kill it. But I'm ultimately responsible. And if I, as a leader, think of some of the best leaders you've ever met in your entire life, man, like when they really feel like they are for you and have your best, and for a woman to really feel heard and understood and provided for emotional security-wise, like, man, she's on board.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And like, even if like you're not a Christian, a Bible person or whatever, just look at the impact of testosterone, right? So who has the stronger desire? I do, right? Like, I have a stronger desire for her than me. Why do you think that is? It's because I am built to take care of her. But instead, what people do is they live so much of their life in the thoughts of, what is my greatness going to look like? My main thought is, what is the most I can do to serve my wife? Right? Yeah. And at times that means pissing her off, right?
Mm-hmm. There is times.
Of course, that's like,
because it's for their betterment.
That's the danger of the happy wife, happy life is like, she's
I would hate if I could I wouldn't want to walk all over him.
No.
Well, then you're married to a weak man.
Yeah.
Like,
and how am I
that
secure?
is the other end of it that I see too, is you have these husbands who are like, like shells of themselves. They're like, well, whatever she wants to do. Like, and you're like, dude, do you want to do that? Or is that, and they're like, they don't have the energy to like stand up for themselves anymore because they've let themselves get beat down or whatever, or live that happy wife, happy life mentality.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is the, I think the two greatest lies that come, like, as we see day in and day out, is the lie of believing that retirement is what you're striving for. And the second is that what communication is, right? Mm-hmm. So how many couples break up, get divorced, and all this because they go, we just don't communicate. It's, what is it? Everybody? Nobody can communicate, right? Yeah. So it's like it's the same thing everywhere. So what does that mean? What does it mean to communicate? If it means I say something, she magically perfectly understands my intent, then she says it back, and we never get in a fight, that's the lie you're believing. Like, that is not going to happen. Here's what communication is. We're going to stay committed, and we're going to continue to talk this out until I can really understand what you're thinking and understand what I'm thinking, right? And
I think it's like what you said. What he does now is when I come to him with, like, here's how I feel, he'll say the same thing. So you're saying that you feel like blah, 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 blah.
Does he really?
100%.
Oh, good.
And it works so good. And then I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then he'll, like, reiterate, like, so you're saying that I hurt your feelings. And then, like, that makes me feel so heard versus just, like, let me fix it. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, and that was my step one. And then my
that's hard lesson.
My infancy of thought here, because I got everything figured out, was I was like, okay, I understood. Okay, well, here's what I actually was trying to say, right?
And I'm like, you didn't hear me at all.
Yeah, I didn't hear. She's like, and I'm like, damn,
you're not sorry.
Yeah,
you're not sorry at all.
How'd I mess that up? Yeah. And it took me forever. Yes. Actually, law school even helped with this, which was, I did something and that had an impact. To, like, say why it shouldn't have had that impact is not the outcome, right? Like if I said, that necklace looks great on you, but what she heard was like, I look terrible today, right? You're like a man's like, how'd you get there? That's not what I meant. What I meant was that, right? And you're like,
yes.
Then you're not actually apologizing for how she felt, right? And so like, no matter what, I went like this, and that had an impact. It doesn't matter what my intent was. It had a unfavorable impact.
Yes.
Do I want that impact? No.
Yeah.
Then that's what I'm apologizing for.
If men could just if they just start paying attention for one, and just going, hey, when we talk, like, man, like we're not on this, like we just ended this conversation and she's upset, or she didn't like, that didn't resolve anything. That didn't go where I thought it would go. Okay, so begin to learn from that.
Yeah. It only takes like a decade or two.
Dude, it's tough.
Longer.
It's tough.
Still
it's
working.
tough because we think of
like,
logic.
Oh, he just started this. It's not like
10 days ago.
Like,
10 days ago.
Dude, so
Congratulations on 10 days.
That last step. Actually, what's crazy is like I always wanted to understand, and most of my frustrations, like where I would get the most mad, I had to stop and ask myself, like, why am I so like pissed off about this situation? And I realized that it was my inadequacy to help her to have her best day or smile. I was frustrated that she was in a place of feeling that.
Andrea used to yell at me all the time, like, because it was, what did she used to say to me? Like, if I want everybody to be happy at all times,
right.
Especially when I was home, like, and so if something was wrong with her, I'd be like, well, what's wrong?
Right.
Like, well, what can I do? Like, and I would be trying to solve it.
Right.
Or like, oh no, let's just be happy. And she's like, you idiot. Like,
Yeah.
just let me, like, we can't be happy all the time.
Right.
Let me feel this way.
Yeah. She's like, you're not the guardian
That's
of
it.
happiness.
That's
You know,
right.
even though that's what my name means, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
she looked it up, but
That's
it's
funny.
like, yeah, and that's how I had to grow too. Is like,
Right.
okay, yeah, like I just got to let her vent.
And this
or
is how
let her-
deceptive Satan is,
Yep.
because what she'll hear from that is that you want her to be happy so you can have a good day. But like the reality is you just want her day to be good, right? And so that's how deceptive just the tiny little details adjustment of the world's lives.
I feel like that correlates too with raising kids as well. Like I think how the most that I've grown is when my daughter hit high school, right? And then raising her through her high school years, that's when I was like, oh shit, like I have a lot to work on, because my wife Andrea is like probably one of the strongest individuals you ever meet, and
She's
really
amazing.
there's really nothing that can
the whole world can see that if they just do a little history check.
nothing bothers her. She's so confident, even when even little stuff like that, when she's venting or whatever, it's not, she doesn't need me to like console her. She's just like, this is what's pissing me off, and like boom boom boom, and then it's good. But then raising my daughter, where I almost applied the same logic, where she would say stuff and I'm like, all right, and I could tell, I'm like, no, she needs, to talk it out or have a conversation. And that's where, I had just gotten out of the military too. So I was like going through that process of that, trying to like, okay, how am I going to raise this high school daughter, or like talk to her? And it helped me grow tremendously.
Yeah.
Like, I apply a lot of that stuff we're talking about with marriage to my kids as well, because you have to sit there and listen to them. Even like the little mundane stories, or, like, oh, Dad, like, sometimes you're doing stuff and you're like, dude, all right, I don't want to look at that TikTok video or whatever you're looking at. But, me and Andrea talked the other day, and, she's like, oh, they're in here, she's trying to get work done. I'm like, you have to every once in a while remind yourself, like, hey, stop what you're doing.
Right.
And what they're telling you is important to them.
Absolutely.
And they want to share it with you, so like sit there and take the time, which is, easier said than done.
Yeah. That's what we always said too with our kids. It's like, we had to sit through all these, like, so this story, and there was like this dog, and we're like, but we always said we have to listen
Absolute
to those
worst
stories
Oh,
because when they're in their teenage years, that they will come to us with like real questions. So you have to sit through all those.
Yeah, we hadn't
stories.
obviously been able to vet the process till we had our own kids.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember we talked about it early, and it's like, man, I'm going to listen to every absolutely worst context of detail story of all time every single time they come to tell you, like, and then there's this, and you're like, oh man, this is a terrible story. I just remember
It never ends.
That's like, but the bet was, how much as parents do we say, like, I don't have time to hear that. I don't have time to hear that. I don't have time to hear that. And then they become teenagers, and we go,
speak up.
why don't you talk to me
Yeah.
more?
It's
Why don't you tell me?
you weren't listening
Exactly.
to me before.
Exactly. I built, quite a few years, and I feel the same as you, that like when we had our daughter, I learned so much about females, period, because it was just like, I remember an exact moment where she went to jiu-jitsu. She's like 5 years old, 6 years old. And from the start, she's been an absolute just savage.
Yes.
Right? Ready, set, go. Like a badger attacking something at all times, right? Like, have you seen those honey badger videos of like it fighting off lions? That's been Brody from day one. And, our son as well as a savage, but she got to watch him for 2 years before this and just like holding on to the cage, wanting to do jiu-jitsu. But anyway, so she's like, the likelihood at that young that like she's having a bad day from like physicality or something just wasn't there. And she was rolling, and I remember like watching her, and she was like, like wiping her eyes, like crying. I was like, what is going on? Right? So it's like about a year into jiu-jitsu probably at this point. And she's like going with somebody else, and she's like crying and wiping her eyes. And I was like, afterwards she came over. Well, I asked Daniel or Danny first, our jiu-jitsu coaches, and I was like, did she like somebody beat her up a little bit? Did she get tapped or something go south? And they're like, nope, And I was literally watching too. It was just, what did I miss? And so she got in the car with me. For whatever reason, it was just her and I that day. Her and Slade must have been doing something at school or something. But so she's in the car with me, and I was like, hey, baby, what's up? And she was like, nothing. And I was like, did somebody hurt you? Like, did you get in a funny position, your arm bar or something? She's like, no. And I was like, was the code? I was just, I went through the gamut. It was just nothing. And she had no answers for me. And I was just like, okay. 24 hours later, we're like driving somewhere, her and I, and she goes, hey, Daddy, you know how, like, when I was crying yesterday, you know how, like, sometimes, like, you just cry, like, for no reason? And I was like, no, I don't.
Exactly.
And it just literally, like, an epiphany, and I just go, like, baby, I don't know what that's like, but your mama does, not often, but it does happen, and I understand that it does happen. I was just like, all that time where she, like, there were times where she just was, kind of blue for no reason. It's like, I didn't have an answer for it. It's like, if it can happen at 6, then she wasn't working me, right? It's because that's what men often feel like. And then we have partners at all of our gyms, now the Militia Fitness gyms. They're fantastic. We have for, I want to say a little over 5 years, and they were all different, our head team leaders and coaches before this, and just took care of people so well that we took them on as partners, and we've been blessed by them, and they're fantastic. They actually run all the gyms now at Majority, but being in relationship with them, and they're all married and they have kids younger than ours, but we have such a tight community here where, like, generally people don't feel like they can kind of go, hey, man, I'm struggling, like, with figuring out how to talk to my wife or this. And we've all kind of got to work through these things as partners, and the wives have. And our couple will talk with some of our different partners at different times for stuff. And it's been really neat for that. And that is the things that we're talking about are not, oh, this is Jordon and Jesse's relationship, and they're just like that, and it's not repeatable. No, like, really fantastic people that we have here, and all of our partners are like diversely different as well, from different backgrounds, right?
Yeah, which is key.
Yeah, and Eddie's met all of them. They're fantastic at some different, like, fitness stuff we've done as well, and man, they're so diversely different, but the principles prove to be true. Yeah. And the question is, like, as a man, to the men out there, like, if you're not thinking about, like, when you wake up and you go to bed, and you're not thinking about how to take care of your wife, like, like, she's freezing cold right now. She's not going to say it, but it's like, if that's not the level of, like, intent that I'm watching it, right? You're cold? Oh, yeah. Seeing, if I'm not, like, observing her in that kind of way, and you're wondering, like, why it is that you're in difficulty, then, like, just expect difficulty, because you had a problem and she was the solution, and now you're not taking care of it.
Even if it's just, like, she's not flourishing, right? And can you imagine raising your kids without your wife? I mean, like, my wife hits primarily responsible around our kid, and, like, and she's built for that.
That's what cracks me up. He has no clue, like, what size clothes the kids wear, what freaking size shoe, what grade, what subjects they're taking.
Address.
Yeah, that's how I take the kids back to school shopping, and I'm like, all right, I'll take you, and then we'll go. I'm like, So what
Yeah.
what size are you? Like, go
Yeah.
pick your shit out and
What do you mean
get this
what do you
done.
mean you're a 10? You're not a 10. I got a 10 on. What do you you're not a 10. What do you got?
Cracks me up.
Yeah.
I know my son, because I was like, hey man, he's starting school, obviously here in a couple weeks, and I was like, dude, you need to get some clothes for back to school. He's like, yeah. I was like, cool, man, I'll take you. And he's like, Mom, he's like, I think I'm gonna have Mom take me. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right.
Oh yeah, so true.
Man, dude. Yeah, we homeschool our kids, and our son started in school, and then we ended up switching them over because, again, similar to getting out of the military, our mindset was like, what is my level of responsibility here, right? And so we watched our son. He started to adopt a little bit of a value set of one of the teachers he had. I was sitting him, putting him to bed. He's like 7 or 8, and it's like he said something, and I went, "Where'd you hear that, buddy?" And he was like, "Mrs. Rape." Right? So,
Yeah.
said this. We're local enough. I don't want to harm, catch me a defamation case. But so I was like, And leading up to that, he wasn't like a great reader. So Jess worked with him a whole semester long to take him on this kind of standardized test from a 1, which is no good, a 2's passing, 3's exceptional. She took him from 1 to a 3, and I was like,
Nice.
you're already schooling
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
You're already doing
Awesome.
it,
That's a good mom.
And
Yeah.
we knew that she was going to still take the burden of responsibility for that as well. Ultimately, if we homeschooled them, and now it's wild because the impact. There's nothing that beats quantity.
Jordan was so blown
No.
away. I had him come with me to one of the so Slade, our son, will be in high school this year, and they have an academy, a local academy. It's a homeschool academy where there's a bunch of professors that teach certain subjects, and they can come once a week in a classroom setting and pick out which classes. And so I said, you need to come along so you can like at least see what Slade's doing this year. And so he comes along, and Slade's taking like a survival course, a public speaking course, and like all this cool
Oh, that's
stuff.
awesome.
Dude,
Yeah. He leaves.
it's
He's like,
unreal, Eddie.
dude, thank your mom right now. Like,
I
no-
literally, I just walked in the parking lot and I was like, dude, I'm going to double leg you right now if you don't realize what an awesome opportunity your mom created.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool,
Good for
cool
y'all.
thing. So we're excited for him.
So you guys have how many gyms?
We have 4 gyms, and then, like I said,
Are they all in the Destin area?
No, so
We have Pensacola,
Okay.
Destin, Fort Walton Beach, and Crestview.
yeah. And so
Nice.
at each one of those spots, we have a different partner and wife that run those gyms, right? And so they are the what we do is we work with them now from like, hey, maybe what's some different strategic vision stuff we could do, kind of, especially as like the economy so interesting right now. And then we have kind of a collective group that does programming. So I do the main programming. Jess does all the kind of super core Destroyer 1000 that we call Core Crusher on Wednesday. One of our other partners, she does there's like a kind of glute specific workout, and then she does another programming for a dumbbell only workout we got. And then the other coaches do a whole bunch of programming on various different kind of cool stuff that we also have. And then they run the gyms day in and day out. They're the leaders. They're building people and impact.
Most people probably don't know who Jordan and I are at the gyms
that's
anymore.
it. Yeah.
Most likely.
And because,
Good for y'all. Y'all
That's
are
it.
automating yourself.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
yeah.
is your goal to have more gyms and to build it up?
Probably
or-
not.
I think we're done with that, yeah.
So it's not that for us, it's just about the reason that we took on the partners we had was because of the quality and character of human, right? Like to have enough capital to like open another gym is not a crazy difficult thing to do. To have somebody of character that will take care of people. For us, it was, our partners we knew loved people the way that we loved people, in spite of my inability to speak to people as a young man. We always cared for people, and that is the Militia Fitness way, is like community first. That's our first value. We want to take care of people, all walks of life. All of our partners are 100% like same bloodline, take care of people. So to like pop up another gym, it's not that it won't happen. It's just
Have to find the right people.
Right. If the right people show up. And
at this point, like the right people would probably be shepherded by our people, right? So
Yeah.
our
'cause we're
team, our partners, if it gets to the point where somebody grows under them the way that they grew with us, and like, because now these guys are my peers, you know what I mean? So if they raise up somebody to be like a sub peer to a peer,
Nice. It's
and-
like
and
almost
they're
like the
good-
board have to approve them.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's
cool.
basically just Jesus's model of discipleship. Like that's, trying to figure out how to sort through this early on. As I said, hey, it's easy to hire somebody that can teach you how to do cleans or snatches, but like, we want to impact lives. Right? We want to make a big impact in lives. Well, how did Jesus do it? Oh, he held a really high standard and only allowed people that like really wanted to impact lives, you know? And so that's how we got it. That's how we got our partners. If they have people, we would probably more likely help support them in launching out.
Oh, cool.
Like another location of some sort, but it would be based upon the character rising up more so than the acquisition of finances or, you know, trying to figure out how to make more money. Like, we don't care.
That shouldn't be.
We got to make money.
You got to, but
this is reality.
Character comes first.
That's it. Character's always first. Yeah. And so when we raise their stuff, like, they make substantially more, right, than obviously when they're employees and then junior partners, and now they're the primary partners. So with some of the finances we gave up, we said, you know, in free time, what can we do to make an impact? You know, because for us, we wanted to see them thrive as well, and let's go see what else we can do as well. So we still have a huge part in the gyms from in impacting with our partners, but day to day, it's all them.
Yeah.
So we've since done what?
When was it? 2009, 2010, the first gym?
First gym, 2009.
2009.
So, and now you have 4.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep.
And then it's Militia Fitness?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we started very first day, we were a CrossFit, right? So it's 2009. Nobody even knew really what CrossFit was except for
That was the
special
biggest
operations,
question.
right? So I learned about CrossFit working out with some SEALs in Al-Assad out in Iraq in the West, you know what I mean? Covering down.
Al-Salad, yep. I've been there a couple times.
That's it. It was Wild West out there at the time. And so that was like, nobody did any kind of like gym that was outside of normal gym. That was like the best answer. So that's what we started as. And then our programming and approach to fitness kind of was very much deviated from like kind of the standard of what it moved to as well. Right. And so what happened was 2013 was a great time frame as well. The NSCA put out that fraudulent article.
Yeah, you remember that?
CrossFit, the killer workout.
Killer workout?
It was about rhabdo and like people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
you know
People
what I
getting
mean?
rhabdo during
Yeah.
it.
And it was like they did like both negligent and intentionally.
It was a hit piece.
It was rough, but what was fortunate for us is like that caused a real issue similar to like the economy of who would come to the gym because people were like afraid to get hurt. Like, man, that's not how we do our stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
And so we were like, yo, we gotta change what we're doing here. We gotta change our brand because it's not an accurate reflection. And we'd already trained with Louis Simmons a bunch at this point and learned how to we did stuff so different.
Yeah, we were doing strongman competitions.
Hypertrophy like crazy,
totally,
you know, like we did everything just so different.
Yeah.
And so we were like, you know, what name represents this community? Right.
Yeah.
And militia did, right? Because what is a militia? It's a group of people volunteering by themselves. They're not ordered to be there. They're willing as a force to oppose something. And that opposition was the world, right? Whatever it is that is holding you down, your struggle, you know. So through fitness, so many things get highlighted. And so for us, like Militia Fitness it just like an epiphany came to us. And
No, it's awesome. That's a dope name. I like
appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're running so you're doing the kid stuff.
Yeah.
Online. Is that all online?
It is. It's an app. So it's Savage Patch Kids app.
Nice.
Savage Patch Kids. Okay.
Savage Patch Kids. Yeah.
And that was wild. So how did that come about?
Yeah. I always, like I said at the beginning, wanted to inspire kids, moms,
And how many
parents.
people follow you on Instagram for reference?
600,000. So I don't know what the exact
600
number is.
something thousand. So she's been approached a bunch
Yeah.
through time about,
You know,
like,
people
hey,
hit you up. Look, can I make an app for you? Can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah.
And it just never really felt right because there's so many apps out there for adults, and we didn't want to go down that route. We have our own gym. We do our own programming. To program an app and what we do would be so hard for someone
our
to
stuff
follow.
is pretty complex.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
complex. And so I always wanted to do a kids app, and we got approached by an awesome couple. Again, it's another couple that runs, that kind of takes care of apps and stuff like that. And we chatted with them, and I said, you know, we really want to do a kids fitness app. And they're like, oh, that's kind of crazy. And I'm like, I know, but I know it can be done. And I know that it's what kids need. Like, I know there's so many kids out there that their parents, they can't go to the gym. You know, they don't have access like our kids do to the gym, but they maybe have that desire to want to work out, or parents want to help them like get in better shape, you know, and stuff like that. So
And we knew what we learned from training our kids.
Yeah, we knew how to train kids.
Yeah.
It's so
how to
hard.
train adults, how to scale, how to make adjustments. And the one thing that's really cool about Savage that if you come to our gym right now, the natural problem is, like, here's the great part. You have team leaders. They're going to help guide you through everything. But the natural problem is you have a whole life of poor patterns.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got all kinds of fascial patterns. You got all kinds of stuff that, like, you know, like this, you're like stuck like this. You're trying to open up. With kids, you don't have to start with that, which is so crazy. And so we said, like, what are the natural downfalls with kids? Well, they don't have the same awareness of danger, right? So it's like, what we did with Savage, which was really neat, is the program is built, like she said, you pull it up on an app, and we took all of our years of training and said, how can we arm parents that have never coached anything know how to coach kids?
Yeah, it's very much like a fitness curriculum, like a homeschool fitness curriculum that you can follow. And it's 4 times a week, so there's 4 workouts available a week for kids, and it's split up in age groups. Also split up if you have access to gym equipment, or maybe you have access only to like a small dumbbell or
that's what I was going to
kettlebell.
ask. Yeah.
So there's 2 ways you can choose. One route is like you have gym equipment. The second route is you have minimal equipment.
And we're going to build a sprint program in here shortly as well, which is probably like 2 days a week, because sometimes that's all the parents have, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. And
it's accessible. So if you follow the program, we made it, you know, parents are busy, like we have busy lives. So if you don't have the time 4 times a week to like watch your kids do the workout, they can do the workout themselves. They would just swipe, and it has videos and it tells you exactly what to do. But the parent only has to once a week, like before the kids do that whole week worth of workouts, they watch like what Jordan and I are talking about. Okay, this is the weeks. This is the focus of the week. This is what
step by
step. So the parent watches that and then works with the kid just one time, and then they have those 4 workouts that the child can do on their own if they need to.
So they all pertain to what they already coached them on.
Is it a monthly? Do they pay one time?
It is monthly.
Yeah.
Or you can do like
cool
there's
options.
options.
There's like quarterly, you can pay in a year, you pay a month. Yeah,
but it's great too because you can choose which days work for you as well. Because, you know, for us, we have a bunch of activities, and sometimes we don't work out exactly on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
So they can kind of like with the calendar choose which days they're going to do that. The workouts themselves are maybe 30 to 45 minutes long, so not crazy long. But we really have like a lot of like building that foundation of athleticism in kids because, you know, the research says you start that soon, then it just transfers over as they're adults. It's just incredible
to get to see it. Yeah. And so like that's
I'm sold. I'm gonna buy it today.
Oh, it's awesome. Like it's
totally worth it. And what's neat is like as she talked about, like what impact, like, so when your kid gets to the struggle age, right, they get to these teenage years, they leave your house or whatever, like how much time have you been able to like kind of cut through some of the world's lies and build proximity? And the greatest thing about fitness is it gives all these opportunities for you to be able to go, hey, we found some failure today, right? How do I train them to view that? Hey, we found success today. How do I train them to view that? Like these constant challenges in front of them. And so for us, we didn't want to make the app where it was only where a kid operates by themselves. We definitely wanted the integration of
the parents involved, which is key.
Yeah,
exactly. Without making it such a high cost of time where a parent can't dedicate the entire time. So
it's kind of like you said, listen to those stories, listen to that long, boring story.
Yeah,
yes,
like,
that's exactly.
You're taking 30 minutes 4 times a week.
Yeah, so we built it with an instructional piece each week, and they will teach their kid that stuff, and then all the programs, the workouts. Once they teach them, the kid could do all 4 workouts probably by themselves.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so we built it up from the way it starts is it's very hinge based, right? So it's like limb extremity based, no loading to where they start to build up their extremities. And then the next phase of the program goes into building up core stability and control. And then the next phase of the program is now that I can control my core and have stronger extremities, putting them together, and then slowly in a very non-dynamic, slow-moving fashion, complex movements, stuff like deadlifts, all the way down to progressively working towards faster movements. And each week it just builds upon itself.
So it's like a very crawl, walk, run method.
Yeah,
very much. Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Honestly, man, like,
and not only just
it's incredible for like what kids can do.
And for injury prevention, definitely for kids, any kid that plays sports should do something like this because, I mean, we see with our kids in sports injuries all the time that happen to athletes that maybe have underdeveloped quads or underdeveloped hamstrings. And, you know, there's like an imbalance of muscle. And you you see that in sport, but with a real good conditioning program, strength and conditioning program.
And we build all of the same stuff that we have into our like Mush Fitness program as well, where it's like not very few things like in life are like in this perfect plane where I'm going to go down and pick stuff up.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know from jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
Most things I got all these rotational movements. I have my heads moving one way and the other. And so like where are these injuries happening? Like just running is a good example. Sure, if you're on like this perfect linear path and then you're running and you see something while you're on this trail running, you got to divert quickly. Well, like how are you diverting? Is that from an abduction? Do you have like an actual rotational movement so your back's not getting beat up in your ankles?
Yeah,
and
you're
like,
not tweaking something.
Exactly. So we built all that stuff in the program too. So it's like it gets progressive and continues, and it's a forever program, right?
Do you guys include diet and nutrition?
We do a little bit, but
that's got to be
we
hard
do have it
to
in
do
there.
Yeah.
generically.
I mean, that's one of those things you can't. I mean, people are going to eat what they're going to eat, right?
We have
We
like
definitely have a
we
little
have
bit of
stuff
in
like
there. The big part we do with that is there's an exclusive blog as well.
yeah, we have a blog where we write a bunch of things to.
The only people that have access to it are people that are on the program, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's through a Facebook group, but it's just like on the Facebook group, they're all on there, and you can put it up, and then we put stuff up, and they can ask questions and those types of things. But we do a lot of specific stuff on there. But the thing with diet that we're always cognizant of is you don't want to treat diet as good and bad.
And it's cool because we've done a couple seminars with like young athletes in person, and it's been the most interesting thing to do like a nutrition seminar with athletes, young kids.
How do we open it? We always open with the kids.
Yeah, we'll ask them, like what's a good food? What's a bad food? Just to hear what they have to say, and then we go into like what he was about to say.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things, like real quick, man, there's so much judgment already in the world. Like this is where we talked about kids, we go, listen, if you think this is a bad food, and then when you eat it, what are you?
You're going to feel bad.
You feel bad. And then when you feel bad, it's going to be twice as hard to get back to good food, right? It's like I'm already here, sunk cost theory, right?
Might as well eat 10 more.
Might as well.
Might as well admit it. Finish the box.
And so
Go big or go home.
some of the stuff that we have in the app, but the reason we didn't, like, it's still, I want to say the furthest person along, because it's only launched about 6 months ago, is about 6 months. So in the very beginning, it might seem counterintuitive to not really approach any of it too much too soon, right? Yeah. So just get moving, right?
Yeah, momentum.
Build momentum. That is the key. So that's like, so I started training Trevin in January, right? And we can say that he started from, I mean, he was a
Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, like
shout out Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, he was a slob, like complete gamer body. Just
sick thumb dexterity though.
He's just so smart. He's he's a
genius.
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times.
But when we started off, I was like, because I was thinking like, dude, okay, how am I gonna get this kid from here?
Yeah,
because he's going in the Marines, and I tried to do. I was like, okay, diet, this. I'm like, you know what? No, F it. Like, we're just going to do it.
Cool.
Like, we're going to get out there. And I, started the workouts not too easy. I mean, they were kicking the nuts, but they weren't like crazy hard, But I wanted to give him like, dude, this is how bad off you are. Yeah. And these are medium workouts. But I told him, I was like, I don't care about anything else right now except you show up every morning and we do these. Like, that's number one goal.
That's right.
And I was like, and then from there, we could start working on the other factors. And the diet part sort of naturally happened on its own, right?
Because all of a sudden you want to get better at what you're doing.
Because he's like, now I don't feel good when I eat this, and I don't feel like working out. And so I'm like, okay, well then cut that out, like I was like, I'm not going to force you or tell you like you can't eat this and this. I'm like, you have to build that discipline on your own. But I think through these workouts and through getting up every morning, you're going to naturally be like, do I want to feel miserable during this workout or do I want to feel good? And it's happened, So, yeah, I can understand why you don't implement that right away.
It is.
So you got to build momentum. I mean, I think that's one of the key, like when I never worked out entire life, didn't care, was like, I'm never going to join a gym ever. Like, I don't care about looking in a mirror and doing like.
Sounds like my brother.
So I could not stand it. You know, I've had a high metabolism, but like I weighed the same since I was 18.
You are public enemy number one.
Yeah.
100%.
You don't have to worry about
Could
anything.
not
Yeah,
stand.
I just can't gain weight.
I was like, I don't
It's
care.
like, oh, poor you.
Then 2 years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start leveling up in life, right? Like I'm going to start doing things every single day that makes me uncomfortable.
Yep.
But when I looked at working out, I was like, crap, like that's the last thing I want to do. But I'm going to do it because it's the last thing I want to do.
Right.
But I'm going to start really simple. And I just started going, okay, I'm going to come in. I put a pull-up bar in there. And I was like, I'm going to do 20 pull-ups a day. But I'm going to just do that. But I'm going to be consistent on it because I'm not going to start some huge workout program with all this complexity. And then I end up falling off because it's too much.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I started being consistent. And then just slowly built on that.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the things. It's like I have a niece she's way overweight, but like she is like just seeing just a little bit. Just start taking walks.
I
Just
was
start
gonna
doing
say that,
something.
walk. Yep.
Move.
Yeah.
Just start and then let that momentum build. Just commit to it for a couple weeks and just let it build
That's
upon
what we
itself.
say. If you're here, we obviously would tell you to come to our gym because we have that mindset to help you. If you're not, you're listening to somewhere else. It sounds crazy, but like people have asked Jess a ton. We've talked back and forth, and like our going answers, like you're not working out, you're not doing. Here's all you gotta do. It's gonna sound crazy. Go to the gym, walk inside, get a drink of the water, and leave. And you're like, what? It's like you made it. Hey, you made it through the door.
You stepped
Yeah.
in the
That's it.
doors.
Yeah.
And now on your next day, you go over, you do one set of dumbbell curls, and then you leave. And you're like, that isn't. Dude, there is nothing that beats consistency.
Yep.
And you can build momentum off consistency. When your mindset is like, this is absolutely, I got to do it. It's got to be perfect. And it's like, good luck, right? Because life happens. So in your kind of exact thought process is the same as ours. Like if you want to know, for us, what we always thought about with building our kids' character, it was not good jobs and blessings. It was shepherding them through challenges. And where there's no challenges, we create them, right?
And we always have like a theme. There's like a theme for this year for school, and the theme is like discipline builds freedom. And so teaching our son at 14, like to have the discipline to do those things like work out, to make sure your homework's done, to make sure that you have a time block and getting all these check marks, checked off, because when you have that discipline, then you have freedom to play like a video game if you want to.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you just all day are like worried about all the things you have to get done and never really enjoy your time or have freedom. So we try to make, themes like that and stuff.
No,
so,
that's key for sure.
Yeah.
It's prioritizing,
yeah.
that, work, everything else, and then get that done. And
And
you
have-
have this block of time to yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. And we, as a principal, every single day for some time, years and years and years now, our mindset has been no matter what, I'm going to do something today I don't want to do.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
That's key.
Right? That's it.
Yes.
That's why I bought that cold plunge.
I was going to say, you do
Yeah,
ice
do
bath?
it all the time.
Because we do it all the
I
time.
do it every day.
Yeah.
I bought, I have the one, that just remains constant.
nice.
And like this morning.
Gucci.
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple of things I spend. I'm not a big spender, but I
Eddie's
was
arms
like,
won't fit in a normal life.
had to get the extra large, But yeah, it's like the same thing. I get up in the morning. There's some days I get up and I'm like, I'm getting in.
Yeah.
But then,
Motivated.
like yesterday, I was feeling ill after I ran, and I'm like, dude. And even usually after I run, I want to get in, but I was feeling so horrible. I was like, dude, but I forced him. Got in there, 3 minutes, and then got out. I was like, all right, I did it,
That's right.
And
Yep.
you feel 100 times better. And that's what I try to instill in my kids too is I'm like, you're not going to gain anything without any suffering.
Right.
You do have to suffer
Absolutely.
in life in order to feel like you've accomplished something. Or it's like if stuff is just given to you, then you're not growing. You're just like, well, okay. I'm like, you have to suffer through things. And suffering can be good. But, obviously there's a balance as well. But
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. Like,
He makes our son get up at 6:30 and cold plunge before he works out.
yeah, all the
It's
time.
like,
Do
get
it
up.
all the time.
Get
And
up.
you know what? It's funny because it's always a choice. I'm like, hey, man, here's the deal.
yeah, you're not forcing
I'm
them.
not going to make
Yeah.
you do anything. I'm going to do this. You don't have to do this. I do want you to consider what the long-term impact of saying yes to not wanting to do something looks like, right? I don't have to say this now, but this was early on. This was some of the thought process I trained them because our view is this, like, there's always two competing parts in every human, right? And so one of those parts is your soul, your spirit, what your real values are, what you think. And the other part is the flesh side of you, which is, to make it make more sense, it's a pet, right? So like anybody that has a well-trained pet, it's still a pet, right? Like you're like, hey, sit down. It sits down. You say, lay down, lay down. But it's got its own mind. It's got its own values. It does what it wants. And the pet side of you, the flesh side of you's strongest desire is to survive and to be comfortable and to not be in dangerous situations. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is, if I'm not regularly training that side of me, then it's not going to listen to the spirit side. It's not going to listen to those when the values meet, right? So it's like, should I do the right thing here? Nobody's going to know. I don't want to have to be honest about this, or all of these types of things that come up into our minds, that pet side of you is like, it's better if we just do this, right? And I have so rarely trained that side of me to be uncomfortable that it tends to win out. Right? And the way you prevent those things from happening, in my experience, is you train that pet side of you, right?
Yep.
The pets, it's only the pet side of you that doesn't want to get in the ice bath. I know I'm going to feel accomplished, and this is part of my values, is being willing to say no to my feelings and emotions. That part of your brain's like, it's a no-brainer. It's the pet side of you that you got to train, right?
Yeah.
They always talk about the two dogs. It's like, there's only one dog, and it wants to survive, so you got to train it.
He's got 3 dogs.
Wait, do you have Frenchies?
I got 3 Frenchies, yeah.
We just got our first Frenchie 6 months ago.
Oh, nice.
The hardest pet to train.
They won't be trained.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
They do what they want.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Still not potty trained.
I love the fact that they just don't give a
They're
shit.
hilarious.
And they're like, yeah,
Are they smart or really dumb?
They're very smart.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're smart they're like having little humans in the house. So we have 3 of them. Each one, we have the mom and dad, and then we bred them, and only Meat, the youngest, survived. So we kept him.
Meat?
And each of them, Meat lug.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So each of them pairs up with the kids. So like they have the personalities of all 3 of our kids, but they run the house.
That's hilarious.
They're so smart. They know how to get what they want, and they don't listen for
Their
shit.
vocal patterns are the funniest part, though.
Oh yeah.
Like little gremlins. I'm like, what is this?
The noises they make are so unmatched with any other dog.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So
man.
are they better if you get another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what you'll find is they can't be alone. So they have to be around
when we
humans.
leave. Yeah.
Like it's part of their DNA where they
You
were
Jordan?
bred.
We need another one.
They were bred to sit at the feet of like queens or I forget. So like they're meant to sit at the feet.
Makes
High
sense.
companion.
That's
Yes.
what he's always right next to us. Yeah.
So like if you leave them alone, it's like miserable for them. So getting another one. I don't want to give you guys that advice.
It is better to have 6.
It's better. I mean, the more you can get, the better.
We have chickens right now, and that's why we were a little late, because one is we can't find it.
Yeah, they always stay close, but they'll like sneak their way out through
they're
fences and stuff. So we gotta find one when we get back. They always stay close. They've done it before, but they find their way. They sneak around a little bit. They're interesting. Yeah,
crazy.
They're crazy animals too. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. But
I tell you what, it was so awesome having you guys. Like,
Thank you.
I'm so encouraged of y'all's proactive parenting, even shepherding yourself and leadership and your marriage and just family in general.
brother.
I mean, I don't think there's a better message that people need to be encouraged by.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Especially right
Thank
now.
you.
I'm so glad you guys took the time to
man.
come on today.
We're honored to be here, man.
Yeah,
this place looks fantastic, by the way.
I appreciate
Even
that.
I don't know how good it translates to somebody else's eyes, but man, it looks fantastic.
It's awesome.
That's all due to Dave right here, the man.
Thank you. We've been working on it.
Where can people find, like on Instagram? What's your handle?
My handle is at JB_figure.
Okay.
JB figure.
JB figure.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
And then I'm mf.mindset, right? So it probably means militia fitness, but it might mean something else.
It can, depending on the day, right?
That's it.
Yeah, so like I would say for people listening, definitely look them up. We'll put their handles and everything, and then your business stuff when we post it. But definitely look them both up. Look at, the videos you post of your family and stuff you're doing.
that's
It's
awesome
inspirational. And if you're thinking about doing the Savage Patch Kids, like all you have to do is look at their feed and look at everything they do. It works. So definitely give them
it's super neat. And then stay on tune for the Lookout. We got a movie dropping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
check
oh,
out
that's
a-
right.
That's right.
The documentary.
Yeah, documentary. So kind of which would be neat, especially for people looking at like what does our interaction look like with our kids. So Generation Iron's making a documentary on us right now. Which is we feel grateful, we feel blessed to be able to even show what we're doing with our kids. But I would say the number one message with the documentary or life period is like there is nothing exceptional about us. The process is exceptional. Like take high responsibility in your family, your wife, your kids, and expect good outcomes. Yeah. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, brother.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Thank you guys so
Appreciate it.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Out.
That was awesome.